The dawn of imagination. Before there was history, before there was language or song, the earth turned in silence. For millions of years, light and shadow moved across the land, waves folding against stone, wind shaping dunes, stars drifting endlessly above. And then, in one small corner of this vast world, something extraordinary began to stir. A flicker of awareness, a mind awakening to itself. The first humans looked out upon the world and saw not just trees and rivers, but symbols. They looked at the sky and saw patterns, the flight of birds, the phases of the moon, the rhythm of day and night. And within those patterns, they felt something greater than survival. They felt wonder. They felt story. In that feeling, imagination was born. The scene is an ancient cave, thousands of years before words. A small fire burns low, its orange light flickering against the rough walls. Women and children gather close, their bodies painted with ash and ochre. In the trembling glow, shadows move, arms rise, gestures form, voices hum. And then a figure steps forward, pressing a piece of red stone against the rock. Slowly, carefully, they draw a line, a curve, a shape of life, the outline of an animal, a bison perhaps, or a deer. Each stroke a heartbeat, each mark a message across time. It is not merely decoration. It is a spark of consciousness made visible. The first art, the first attempt to hold thought outside the mind. Those early painters did not draw from vanity or leisure. They drew because something inside them demanded to be seen, an inner world, vast and luminous, pressing outward into form. The cave wall became a mirror, a surface upon which mind and nature met. To paint was to dream in color. The firelight flickers, and the painted forms seem to move, the bison's muscles alive in the shadows, the deer leaping with breathless grace. Perhaps this was magic. Perhaps it was memory. Perhaps it was prayer. Whatever it was, it connected the human soul to something far beyond itself. For the first time, imagination became survival. To picture the hunt before it happened was to prepare for it. To recall the path of the stars was to predict the seasons. The human brain, once only reactive, became creative, capable of seeing not only what, but what might. Inside that skull, networks of neurons danced with new light. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of planning and possibility, began to hum. The visual cortex, tuned for sight, started painting from memory. The same circuits that saw the world now learned to recreate it. Imagination was not a fantasy. It was a rehearsal for reality. And even now, tens of thousands of years later, your mind does the same. When you close your eyes and think of a face, a place, a sound, those same ancient circuits awaken. You are not merely recalling the world. You are building it again within yourself. In that cave, by the glow of a fragile fire, humanity took its first step into art. And art became a bridge between dream and daylight, between thought and thing, between the finite and the infinite. The artist pauses, their hand trembling slightly. The smell of smoke and animal fat fills the air. Behind them, others watch in silence. They are witnessing the birth of something sacred. Not religion yet, not science, but the seed of both. The desire to understand, the longing to express. The painting grows. Animals chase one another across the wall. Human hands leave prints, red, black, white, pressed flat upon the stone, as if to say, I was here. I saw. I dreamed. Those handprints are the oldest self-portraits in existence. Not of faces or forms, but of presence. Thousands of years will pass before those same hands will build pyramids or write poetry. But the essence is already there, the spark that drives all creation. Imagination is the shadow of consciousness itself. When archaeologists later discover these paintings, they marvel at their beauty, their sophistication. The pigments are layered, the movement alive, the meaning mysterious. But beyond analysis lies something deeper, an emotional recognition. We know these images not as outsiders, but as kin, because we too dream, we too create, we too leave marks on the walls of time. Breathe slowly now. Imagine the air in that cave cool, heavy with smoke, vibrating with heartbeat and breath. The fire crackles softly. You can hear a whisper of wind outside, carrying the scent of rain and earth. Somewhere in the darkness, the world sleeps, unaware that something miraculous has just begun. The first art is not merely human expression, it is human awakening. Through image, we learn to think in story to connect cause and consequence, hope and fear, life and death. A drawing of a bison is more than a bison. It is the idea of abundance, the wish for sustenance, the echo of gratitude. Art became the mind's first language, the language of symbols. Symbols allow us to compress entire worlds into form. A circle can hold the sun. A line can mean motion. A handprint can speak of existence. Through symbols, thought became shareable. The private became public, the invisible, visible. And so imagination became memory, and memory became culture. Generations passed stories through pigment and line, through gesture and song. The walls of caves were the first libraries, the first archives of emotion. They told who we were, where we had been, what we longed for. Even now, when you look upon them, you can feel that same vibration. A rhythm that hums in the bones, a quiet reminder that creativity is not an invention of civilization, but a birthright of being. To imagine is to remember the first time the universe realized it could see itself. The fire burns lower. Ash drifts in slow spirals through the air. The artist sets down the ochre stone, their eyes reflecting the painted forms. In that reflection, they see not only animals and figures, they see themselves. For the first time, the human mind recognizes its own reflection in the act of creation. Outside, dawn begins to break. The first light of day enters the cave and touches the paintings. The walls seem to glow. Color meets sunlight for the first time in history. The artist looks out toward the horizon at the endless plains, the rustling grasses, the stillness of sky, and knows that the world has changed. Something new has entered existence. Imagination made real, and once awakened, it can never return to sleep. The tribe moves on, carrying memory in their minds and pigment on their hands. They travel across valleys and mountains, leaving behind more drawings, more songs, more traces of thought. Each one a thread in the vast tapestry of human consciousness. Art becomes ritual. Ritual becomes meaning. Meaning becomes mind. And mind, forever restless, forever curious, begins to wonder what lies beyond. As you breathe now, let that thought settle in you like ancient dust. The world around you, every color, every story, every sound is built upon that single moment when a human first dared to imagine. Every film, every painting, every melody, every idea, all trace their lineage back to that flicker of firelight on cave walls. You are part of that lineage. The same circuits of creativity that guided those early hands still hum quietly in your brain. When you draw or dream or simply wonder, you are continuing their work. You are paintings upon the same eternal canvas, the canvas of mind. The dawn of imagination never ended. It only changed its form. And here you are, still dreaming in its light. Art as memory and ritual. Night falls over the open plain. The world is quiet again, except for the soft hiss of wind through the grass and the low crackle of a distant fire. A small band of people gathers close, their faces lit by amber flame. They have returned from the hunt, weary, grateful, alive. The air smells of smoke and rain, of the earth after thunder. In their eyes, a reflection of the stars above. One of them, an elder with silver hair and a voice like dry leaves, hums a low rhythm. Another joins then another, until a slow pulse rises into the night. A drumbeat, a chant, the first music of memory. Long before words, sound was how we remembered. The human mind found comfort in repetition, in rhythm, in the steady circle of movement and return. Each beat was a way to hold the past in the body, to keep experience alive, even when time moved on. Every chant carried a story of the hunt, of the birth, of the fire that once saved them from the cold. They did not yet have language, but they had pattern, and pattern is the root of meaning. In that pattern, art became ritual. Ritual was not performance. It was preservation, a way to remember what mattered. To paint was to record, to sing was to recall, to dance was to embody. Through ritual, the first memories became collective. Imagine the scene. A circle of dancers moves beneath a moon half hidden by cloud. Their shadows flicker against stone. Each gesture echoes the shape of an animal, the flight of a bird, the curve of the sun's rise. They move as one body, the tribe remembering together. When one voice falters, another continues. When one life ends, another begins. Through ritual, memory becomes immortal. The human brain, even then, was wired for story. In the hippocampus, deep within the folds of grey matter, neurons fire in precise order, stitching moments into sequences. That is how memory works. One image follows another, forming a chain. Over thousands of generations, this mechanism evolved not just to store experience, but to shape it into narrative. A brain that could remember in story was a brain that could survive. And so ritual became more than repetition. It became teaching. The elders' song told the children which plants healed and which poisoned. The rhythm of the dance mapped the migration of herds. The painted symbols on the rocks spoke of seasons, of loss, of return. These early stories were not entertainment. They were survival written in beauty. To remember was to live. But somewhere inside that remembering, something deeper took root: emotion. Not fear or hunger or pain, but reverence. The awareness that life itself was fragile and luminous. And so art began to hold not only knowledge, but meaning. A handprint on the wall was no longer a mark of presence. It was an offering, a sign of gratitude, a plea for protection, a whisper into the unknown. This is how ritual became spiritual, not because of gods, not yet, but because of awe. Art was our first form of prayer. When lightning struck the mountain and fire leapt from stone, the tribe painted its memory. When a hunter fell, they carved his story into bone. When the rains returned, they sang to the sky. The rhythm of creation was mirrored in the rhythm of ritual. Each act of art was a conversation between the seen and unseen. Now imagine yourself sitting among them, the hum of the drum in your chest, the warmth of fire on your face. The smoke rises in slow spirals, carrying sparks into the night. You feel the vibration in the ground beneath your feet, a heartbeat larger than your own. You begin to understand what they felt, that the act of making art was not simply to remember, but to belong. In creating, they reaffirmed their place in the world. The painted bison, the carved figurine, the rhythmic chant all said the same thing. We are part of something vast. Through art, humans began to bridge the gulf between self and cosmos. And in that bridging, consciousness deepened. Psychologists today call it collective synchronization, the shared rhythm that binds groups into unity. When people move or sing together, their heartbeats and breathing align. Cortisol levels fall, oxytocin rises, trust grows. It is the same chemistry that calms a child in a lullaby or moves a crowd during a concert. The roots of that feeling reach back here, to the first fire circles. Ritual, art, and memory, three threads woven into the same fabric of the mind. Ritual gives art purpose. Art gives ritual beauty. Memory gives both continuity. Over time, these acts evolved. Patterns became symbols. Symbols became myth. A spiral carved into stone might represent the journey of the sun. A zigzag might speak of water, of the river that nourishes. Every tribe developed its own language of signs, unique yet universal. Even without speech, a visitor from another valley could look upon those carvings and understand. They spoke the same visual grammar, the rhythm of nature, the pulse of life. This was humanity's first shared language, and it lived not in the mouth, but in the hands. To carve, to paint, to shape these acts required patience, focus, surrender. The maker entered a state of quiet absorption, what modern scientists call flow. In flow, the boundaries of time dissolve. The self fades into the act. The maker becomes the making. That timeless calm, the one you feel when lost in drawing or writing or music, was already known to those early artists. It was their meditation, their trance, their bridge to something infinite. Even today, when you trace a line or hum a tune, you enter the same state. The brain slows, the body aligns, and awareness expands. The ritual continues, modern hands performing ancient prayers. As generations passed, the rituals grew more complex. The dead were buried with beads and figurines. Stones were stacked into circles. The first monuments rose not to kings or nations, but to time itself. They marked the solstice, the harvest, the return of the sun. Art became a calendar, a compass, a map of existence. The more we created, the more we remembered. And the more we remembered, the more we created. It was a spiral, an upward curve, imagination feeding on memory, memory feeding on imagination. Each generation inherited not only tools and fire, but symbols. Through them, knowledge became cumulative. Art was the first technology of the mind. Now the scene shifts. Thousands of years pass like wind over sand. Humanity spreads across continents. In each region, different materials, different songs, but always the same impulse: to transform memory into meaning. In Africa, intricate beads of ostrich shell mark social bonds. In Australia, ochre dots tell the stories of the dreamtime. In Europe, antlers are carved with spirals that echo water and moonlight. In every corner of the earth, humans express the same need to externalize what lives inside. What unites all these early expressions is rhythm. Whether through drum, brush, or footstep, rhythm is the body's way of remembering. Neuroscientists would later find that rhythm stabilizes attention, soothing the mind. It allows the nervous system to regulate, to breathe, to settle, to focus. Art was not only emotional expression, it was physiological healing. Ritual gave shape to the chaos of existence. It offered certainty in a world of storms and hunger. When the tribe danced, they felt control over fate. When they painted, they froze time in color. When they sang, they joined their breath to the breath of the world. And through that joining, anxiety transformed into awe. You can still feel that pattern in yourself. When you light a candle, when you repeat a phrase, when you return to a favorite song. Each act is ritual, an echo of ancient rhythm anchoring you to calm. The psychologist Carl Jung once wrote that ritual is the psyche's way of keeping chaos at bay. It is art as containment, a circle drawn around the unknown. Within that circle, fear becomes beauty, loss becomes memory, life becomes story. This is the origin of myth. From ritual came narrative, the dance of cause and effect, of transformation and return. Lightning was no longer random. It was the anger of a sky spirit. The river was a mother, the harvest her gift. The stars were ancestors watching from above. These were not superstitions. They were metaphors, the mind's early poetry, giving emotional form to mystery. Myth allowed people to live with uncertainty. It gave meaning to death, purpose to suffering, hope to struggle. It told the heart that everything, even pain, belonged to a larger pattern. That belief became the heartbeat of culture. Art carried those myths forward, keeping them alive through image and song. Caves became temples. Stories became constellations. Each generation looked upward and downward, finding the same truths reflected in both sky and stone. As centuries unfolded, the line between art and ritual blurred completely. The artist became a kind of priest or healer, one who could translate between worlds. Through pigment, sound, and gesture, they guided others into states of communion. The art was not theirs. It flowed through them. It belonged to the tribe, to the earth, to the invisible rhythm of being. Even now, in museums or theaters or films, that lineage continues. When a piece of art moves you to tears, when you feel time stand still, you are not simply observing. You are participating in an ancient ritual of remembering. You are the tribe around the fire, feeling the pulse of shared humanity. And so the circle endures. Memory becomes ritual. Ritual becomes art. Art becomes the memory of meaning. The night deepens. The dancers slow. The fire settles into glowing embers. Someone whispers a final chant, a wordless melody rising into the dark. It drifts upward, joining the wind, the stars, the silence. The tribe sleeps now, but their dreams continue the ritual. Images float behind their closed eyes. Hands, animals, flames, faces. Their brains replay the patterns they have learned, consolidating memory. Even in sleep, the rhythm goes on. This, too, is art, the nightly theater of the mind. Each dream a rehearsal for meaning, each heartbeat a drum echoing across time. And as you listen, resting in this moment between breath and thought, you can feel it, the continuity that connects you to them. Every memory you hold, every story you tell, every creative impulse you've ever felt, all trace back to that fire, that chant, that first act of ritual remembrance. Humanity learned to be human through art. We became conscious through remembering. And in remembering, we learned to love. The embers glow softer now, their light fading into the horizon of dawn. The world turns quietly, and in its turning, another chapter begins, one where the symbols of ritual evolve into the temples and myths of civilization, where stone itself begins to sing. From stone to spirit, dawn comes quietly over the ancient earth. Mist gathers along the edges of rivers, soft and silver. The first light moves across stone, and in that light, the world begins to remember itself. The tribes that once wandered now begin to stay. The circle around the fire becomes the foundation of a village. The rhythm of the drum becomes the rhythm of work, of planting, of life. And art, once painted on cave walls and carried in song, begins to take form in the very materials of the world. The age of stone begins not merely as an age of tools, but of meaning made tangible. Everywhere, the human hand shapes the earth into symbol. What was once drawn in pigment now rises in form. Stone stands upright, holding the memory of gesture in stillness. Imagine the first monument, a circle of massive stones, rough yet deliberate, reaching toward the sky. They stand in silence, but their silence hums. You can almost feel the pulse of the people who placed them there, hundreds of hands, hundreds of hearts aligned to lift these impossibly heavy forms into order. No single person could have built them. It took the synchronized imagination of many minds. Each stone was a thought, each placement an act of belief. The monument is not just a structure. It is a conversation between earth and heaven. It marks the solstice, the turning of seasons, the return of light. And when sunlight streams through its openings on the longest day, it transforms geometry into grace. It is art as alignment, a way of bringing the cosmos into human rhythm. Across the continents, similar forms arise, circles of standing stones in Britain, carved pillars in Turkey, vast burial mounds in Ireland and Korea. rock-cut chambers in the deserts of Arabia. Different materials, different styles, yet the same silent purpose: to speak with the eternal. Through architecture, humanity learned to echo the heavens on earth. When you stand before these monuments, even now your body remembers something. The scale pulls your gaze upward. Your breathing slows. You feel both small and infinite. This is what those builders understood, that art could shape not only space, but consciousness. By changing the way we move and look, art changes the way we think. In this way, civilization was born from aesthetics. Beauty and structure taught us to stay, to cooperate, to imagine permanence. Stone became spirit. And in that transformation, the human mind took another step toward complexity. Centuries pass. Villages grow into cities. Rivers become trade routes, and trade brings new ideas. Each exchange of goods carries also an exchange of symbols. Art begins to travel clay figurines, woven patterns, carved amulets, each one a small seed of imagination carried from one heart to another. In Mesopotamia, people carved tablets of clay, pressing wedges into wet surfaces to record what they trade, what they own, what they dream. Cuneiform, the first writing. It is a miracle of simplicity, lines and angles pressed by a reed. But within those marks lives the birth of language, the translation of thought into symbol that can survive time. Writing, like painting, is art as permanence. Imagine the sound of those early scribes, their tools tapping rhythmically against clay. They are not poets yet, not storytellers, but record keepers of a new order. Still, in their lines lies beauty, the beauty of pattern, of repetition, of precision. In time, their marks will evolve into myth, into law, into literature. But for now, they are simple echoes of the same impulse that drove the cave painters: to preserve what passes. Down the Nile, the Egyptians carve their art into eternity. Temples rise where river meets desert. Every wall is covered with color and line gods, stars, birds, eyes, suns. Each figure drawn in profile, each gesture measured by rule. To the Egyptians, proportion itself was sacred. Harmony mirrored the cosmic order, the balance of heaven, earth, and the afterlife. Inside the tombs, painters work by torchlight, their hands steady, their hearts reverent. They paint not for the living, but for the journey beyond. Every color carries meaning: red for vitality, blue for the sky, green for renewal. Even now, thousands of years later, those colors remain, bright as if they were painted yesterday. They endure because they were made not just with pigment, but with purpose. When you look upon an Egyptian wall painting, you are looking into a philosophy, a belief that beauty is truth made visible. To preserve beauty was to preserve the soul. And so, art became immortality. Meanwhile, across the Aegean Sea, another people gaze upon the world with curiosity rather than fear. The Greeks, inheriting the myths of older cultures, begin to shape their gods in human form. They see divinity not as distant and monstrous, but as reflected in the human body. The perfection of anatomy, the grace of motion, these become their temples of faith. Sculptors study muscles, faces, and balance. They carve marble until it seems to breathe. They learn that beauty lies not only in symmetry, but in imperfection: the small tilt of a head, the tension in a hand, the curve that suggests life. For the Greeks, art is philosophy made visible. Through sculpture, they explore the nature of virtue, the harmony of logic, the dignity of reason. Through tragedy and theater, they explore the depths of emotion, the conflict between desire and fate. In both, they discover the same truth: art is the mirror of the human condition. Now imagine walking through one of their temples at dusk. The marble glows gold in the fading light. Columns rise like trees, holding the sky. Between each, a space of stillness, where wind and thought flow freely. Inside, the statue of a god calm, balanced, eternal. The air smells of dust and oil, of offerings left by countless hands. You feel yourself growing quieter, more deliberate. The architecture has changed you, drawn you inward. That is its power. Art, by shaping space, shapes emotion. And emotion, in turn, shapes consciousness. What began as ritual has become reflection. In this way, art transforms not just matter, but mind. Farther east, in India, art becomes movement, a symphony of gesture and rhythm. Sculpture spirals with life. Temples pulse with dance frozen in stone. Here, creation is never static. Gods and humans swirl together, each motion a metaphor for energy. Music, poetry, and color merge into a single act of devotion. To create is to participate in the cosmic dance, the rhythm of birth, destruction, and rebirth that underlies all existence. The Indian sculptors, like their Egyptian and Greek counterparts, see art as sacred duty. Every form is precise, every gesture symbolic. A hand raised means blessing. A hand lowered means giving. Even the slightest curve of a finger holds philosophical weight. These are not mere decorations. They are visual mantras, meditations made solid. Across Asia, a new art form begins to take shape: the brush and ink of China. The Chinese scholar artists paint not to replicate nature, but to converse with it. Mountains are not mountains, they are thoughts, moods, moments of connection. In a single brushstroke lies both form and feeling. Calligraphy and painting merge into one gesture, one breath. The artist becomes the brush becomes the landscape. The act of painting is a meditation. To hold the brush properly, one must align body and mind. To create balance on the page, one must first find balance within. This is the art of presence creation as mindfulness. Their philosophy teaches that art and nature are not separate. To paint a bamboo stalk is to be the bamboo, to feel its growth, its strength, its fragility. Art here is empathy, the ability to inhabit the form of another. And empathy, neuroscience tells us, is the core of imagination. Through art, we practice the very thing that makes us human, seeing the world through another's eyes. You can almost hear the brush moving across rice paper, a faint whisper like wind through leaves. The ink bleeds softly, fading into mist. In that fading, impermanence becomes beautiful. The moment passes, but the essence remains. From the stillness of temples to the rhythm of dance, from the permanence of stone to the fluidity of ink, the story is the same. Art is the mind's attempt to converse with the infinite. Through it, we translate awe into form, mystery into meaning. And every culture, every artist, adds a new dialect to that universal language. When you close your eyes now, you can almost feel them all at once. The sculptors of Greece, the painters of Egypt, the dancers of India, the poets of China, all connected by the same pulse of curiosity, reverence, and wonder. Art is not progress, it is continuity. Each generation translates the same feeling into a new form. The tools change, but the yearning remains. As the first part of this story draws toward night, the world begins to shimmer with transformation. Bronze gleams where once there was stone. Cities glow with lamplight and song. The human imagination has found its voice in matter, and now it begins to turn inward again, to explore not just gods or nature, but the landscape of the mind itself. The next age is one of reflection, when artists will begin to ask not only what is beautiful, but why. When the canvas will become a mirror, and the mirror will reveal the artist's soul. For now, though, rest in the hum of history. The stone monuments stand silent beneath the stars. The temples breathe in moonlight, and the rivers whisper softly toward the sea. Somewhere within that stillness, imagination waits, ready to awaken again. The day warms and deepens. Across the valleys, the sounds of chisels and hammers ring through air scented with dust and wild thyme. Civilizations have matured now. They build not only to shelter themselves, but to express what they believe to be eternal. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats rise step by step toward the clouds. From a distance, they look like mountains built by will alone. Every level is a story, every story a bridge between the human and the divine. When priests climb to the top to light sacred fires, the smoke joins the stars. The whole structure is a conversation in stone, a message sent upward. We are here, we remember, we imagine. Inside these towers, walls gleam with glazed bricks the color of night and lapis. Lions and dragons stride across them in patterns of gold. They are guardians of imagination, hybrid beings drawn from the collective mind. When a child looked up at those walls, they saw that the world could be more than what the eyes describe. They learned that to dream is to build. South and west, the Nile continues its endless rhythm. Egypt has become a symphony of geometry and faith. Temples open like lotus blossoms along the riverbank. Obelisks point to the heavens, their tips catching the first light of dawn. Within, columns bloom with carved lotus and papyrus, ceilings painted with stars. The human hand has captured the cosmos in architecture. Every shape in Egyptian art obeys a hidden mathematics. The proportions of the body measured by the length of the forearm, the span of the hand, the rhythm of breath. When artisans painted the journey of the soul through the underworld, they were describing not fear but order, the reassurance that even death has pattern. Their art was not about endings. It was about the continuous movement of spirit through form. Walk deeper into a tomb, and the air grows cooler. The walls shimmer with blues and ochres, with the forms of birds and gods, the faces of kings who have become constellations. The stillness there is almost alive. You can sense that each figure was made not merely to honor the dead, but to instruct the living. Remember the cycles. Trust the rising of light. Keep harmony between the seen and unseen. This idea of harmony as sacred spreads like a wind through time. The Greeks inherit it and refine it into philosophy. To them, beauty is not luxury, but knowledge, the expression of universal proportion. In their temples and theaters, stone moves with a grace that seems almost biological. The Parthenon breathes. Its columns swell slightly toward the center, correcting the illusion of the eye. They call this subtle curve entasis, the tension that keeps perfection alive. Inside the Greek mind, art and reason dance. Sculptors study anatomy as mathematicians study numbers. The result is not realism alone, but empathy. Marble bodies that seem to dream. When you look into the calm face of a classical statue, you feel not awe but recognition. They discovered that the divine could be human, and that to understand the human was to touch the divine. While Europe sculpts in marble, far to the east, the rhythm of creation takes a different form. In India, the same search for harmony unfolds not through measure, but through motion. The walls of temples ripple with dancers and deities entwined in eternal rhythm. Their gestures, frozen in stone, speak of forces rather than figures. Creation, preservation, dissolution, renewal. Every movement is a syllable of the cosmic language. When the sun strikes those carvings, they seem to move. The viewer becomes part of the dance. The mind begins to sway with it. Here, art is not separate from worship or life. It is life, a visible pulse of consciousness. To carve or to sing is to participate in the energy that sustains the world. Listen, and you might hear a drum echo from a distant courtyard. Its rhythm mirrors the heartbeat. Its vibration loosens thought. Dancers turn, arms describing spirals, feet marking the measure of the universe. Each gesture, each sound is a reminder that creation never stops, it only changes form. Across the Himalayas, Buddhism spreads this idea of impermanence like a quiet wind. Artists carve the serene faces of Buddhas into cliff sides, paint mandalas of colored sand that will soon be swept away. They understand that beauty gains power from its transience. The act of making, not the object made, is the true meditation. Watch a monk trace circles of pigment with a steady hand. Each grain of sand is placed with infinite care. Hours later, the whole design, galaxies within galaxies, is brushed into nothingness. The lesson is clear. Even the most intricate creation must return to dust, and yet its making enriches the world. Meanwhile, in China, the scholars sit before inkstones, grinding pigment until it shines like midnight. They dip the brush and breathe once before the stroke. In that breath lies centuries of philosophy. The brush must move as the heart moves, decisive, flowing, without hesitation. A single line can reveal a lifetime of thought. Their landscapes are not about distance, but emotion. Mountains loom through mist, not to intimidate, but to invite contemplation. Emptiness becomes as meaningful as form. This balance of presence and absence, of ink and space, mirrors the Tao itself, the way that cannot be spoken, but can be felt. When modern scientists map the activity of a brain at rest, they find something similar. Networks of connection that flicker and pause, patterns of silence giving birth to bursts of insight. Creation is never constant energy. It is rhythm, pulse, the alternation of fullness and stillness. The artists of the East understood this long before the instruments of neuroscience confirmed it. Now journey west again, across deserts and seas, to the land of Persia, where tiles bloom like gardens of geometry. Here, art becomes mathematics set to prayer. Patterns repeat, yet never exactly, infinite variations on a single design. Within each mosque or palace, color seems to sing, a visual music of turquoise and gold. The artisans know no boundary between science and devotion. To find symmetry is to touch the logic of creation. To lose oneself in it is to approach the divine. In their mosaics, we see the same impulse that guides modern algorithms, the human delight in pattern and iteration. The mind, whether ancient or digital, finds beauty where structure meets surprise. Each curve and star within those tiles is a meditation on infinity, a reminder that imagination itself is an endless tessellation. As evening comes, imagine standing at the crossroads of all these cultures. The air smells of clay and spice, of ink and oil. Bells ring from a temple. A flute drifts from a courtyard. The last light catches the edges of marble and bronze. Everywhere, humanity is speaking the language of form. What unites them is not style, but longing. The longing to connect the material with the immaterial, the finite with the infinite. Whether through stone, sand, or sound, each creation is a question whispered to the cosmos. What am I within this vastness? How can I make the invisible visible? And always the answer returns through the hand, the eye, the voice, by shaping it, by imagining. Art becomes the evidence of inner life. It tells the universe that consciousness exists, that matter has learned to reflect upon itself. Every temple, every statue, every line of ink is a declaration of awareness. As centuries pass, these expressions weave together into a single human tapestry. The Greek sculptor influences the Roman artisan. The patterns of Persia travel along the Silk Road to China. The mathematics of Egypt reappears in Renaissance Europe. Cultures rise and fall, but their visions intermingle like colors in water. Civilization itself becomes a living artwork, millions of minds collaborating across time, each adding texture to the whole. Through this slow exchange, humanity begins to see that creativity is not the gift of a few, but the inheritance of all. Now night descends again. The monuments that blazed in sunlight turn silver under the moon. Shadows pool in the carved folds of statues. Wind hums softly through temple doors. In that hush, you can almost hear the thoughts of the builders, the carvers, the painters, echoes that have never entirely faded. They speak without words. We were here. We loved this world enough to make it beautiful. The same impulse stirs in you now, centuries later. It is the quiet ache to create, to mark existence with meaning, to feel awe and answer it with form. This is the bridge from stone to spirit, the realization that art is not apart from life, but the way life becomes aware of itself. As you breathe, imagine the stars above those temples and tombs. They shine on ruins and cities alike, indifferent yet intimate. Their light touches the hands of those who once painted beneath them, and the hands that hold tools today. Across time, the gesture is the same. Reach outward, draw inward, make something luminous out of darkness. The world sleeps beneath that sky, yet within its sleep, the fire of imagination still burns. You can feel it flickering in your chest, the same flame that glowed in the caves, that guided the sculptors and scribes. It has no era, no nation, only this endless movement from matter to meaning, from stone to spirit. Rest here in that awareness. Let the images settle like dust upon calm water. The story of art will move soon into another chapter, one written not in stone, but in the living architecture of the human brain. The tools will become thought itself, the canvas, the mind. For now, breathe and be still. The monuments stand around you in silence, and in their silence you can hear the heartbeat of creation, slow, patient, eternal. The human mind as artist. The night gives way once more to a slow, luminous dawn. Mist drifts over a quiet river, the air cool, the horizon tender with light. For a moment, the world itself seems to pause as though it, too, were about to dream. And in that pause, the true artist awakens. Not in the temples nor the stone, but within the mind itself. The human brain, small enough to rest in two hands, yet vast enough to hold the universe. Inside it, 86 billion neurons shimmer in a quiet storm of light. Each pulse of electricity is a word, a memory, a flicker of vision. Every second, these cells compose symphonies of perception, connecting and separating, shaping what we call reality. For every brushstroke on every canvas, for every note in every song, there first existed a constellation of firing neurons, a pattern as intricate and unique as a fingerprint. Art, before it is ever seen, is born in these electric whispers. The mind is both canvas and painter, both sculptor and clay. Even as you listen now, your imagination is creating pictures forming behind your eyes, sounds rippling through your thoughts. You are not simply hearing these words, you are painting them, building worlds within the private gallery of your mind. When early humans carved their visions into stone, they were following this same neurological rhythm, the translation of inner image into outer form. The tools have changed, the methods evolved, but the process remains the same. Perception, emotion, imagination, creation. This is the ancient sequence, the pattern of all art. Every work of creativity begins as sensation, a flicker of light upon water, the curve of a shadow across skin, a sound, distant yet familiar. The mind catches these fragments and begins to play. Memory adds texture, emotion adds color, imagination adds meaning. And from these pieces, a new reality forms. In this way, every artist, every human is constantly creating the world they perceive. We do not see the world as it is. We see the world as our minds compose it. The retina captures only light and contrast, patterns and shapes. The brain fills in the rest: color, motion, depth, emotion, story. Every glance, every instant is a work of imagination. You are painting existence with your own consciousness. Close your eyes for a moment and notice how effortlessly your inner world continues. Colors bloom behind the darkness. Images shift and blend. Faces, landscapes, memories all appear, luminous and intangible. The same neurons that process vision are active now, only without the eyes. To imagine is to see from within. Deep in the visual cortex, in the back of the brain, electric storms of thought create these inner pictures. To the mind, there is no clear line between seeing and imagining. The same architecture holds both reality and dream. Elsewhere, in the limbic system, the seat of emotion, each image is charged with feeling. That's why art moves us, because it reawakens the circuitry of emotion tied to memory. The color red is not merely pigment. It is blood, sunset, heartbeat. The sound of a certain melody is not only vibration, it is the echo of longing or joy. The mind cannot separate what it perceives from what it feels. Every perception is a memory reborn. This is the human mind as an artist, not just creating art, but creating meaning. Meaning is the art form of consciousness. It takes raw data light, sound, movement, and weaves it into something felt. Without meaning, the world would be soundless color, motion without purpose. But with it, even silence becomes music, even stillness becomes form. Imagine standing before a painting. Your eyes move across color and shape, but within seconds, your brain begins to narrate. You sense emotion, melancholy, joy, nostalgia. You recall faces, seasons, feelings of your own. In that moment, you are not only viewing the artist's work, you are co-creating it. Every viewer finishes the painting differently, with their own memories. This is how imagination connects us. Each mind adds its own brushstroke to the collective masterpiece of perception. When neuroscientists study this process, they find that imagination is not confined to one area of the brain. It is everywhere, distributed like a symphony: the prefrontal cortex for planning, the parietal lobes for spatial awareness, the hippocampus for memory, the amygdala for feeling. Art is the conversation among them, a chorus of the entire mind. At rest, when you are daydreaming, this network lights up in what scientists call the default mode. It hums like a quiet engine beneath consciousness. In those moments of stillness, staring at clouds, listening to rain, drifting before sleep, your brain is at its most creative. It is sorting, linking, discovering. It is painting without brush, sculpting without stone, and it does so effortlessly. In that relaxed state, your mind is free to wander, to recombine fragments of experience into new patterns. This is why great ideas so often appear when we stop trying in the shower, on a walk, before sleep. The brain, released from focus, begins to play. Play is the purest form of creation. The child at play, the painter at the easel, the thinker in quiet contemplation all inhabit this same flow. The world falls away, time dissolves, the act becomes everything. Psychologists call it flow state, but to the spirit it feels like unity. The boundaries between self and creation vanish. There is only movement, awareness, and joy. Even the body joins in the rhythm. Heart rate steadies, breathing deepens, muscles align. The artist is not making something, they are becoming it. The brush moves as though guided by something larger. Thought transforms into gesture. Gesture becomes image. And in that seamless translation, we touch something timeless. This is not just poetry, it is biology. When we create, dopamine and endorphins rise, the brain's reward circuits glow, and stress hormones recede. Art heals because it restores balance to the nervous system. It reminds the body that life is not only survival, but expression. Every mark made, every word written, every note sung, all are acts of equilibrium. They retune the instrument of the mind. This is why humans have always created, even in hardship. Art is not luxury. It is instinct, a survival strategy for the soul. Now, picture the mind as a great studio filled with light. Thoughts hang in the air like suspended pigments. Emotion moves through like wind through silk. Every memory is a brush dipped in time. Each dream, a color waiting to be mixed. Within you, countless canvases unfold the inner landscapes of imagination. When you close your eyes at night, the mind continues to paint. Dreams are its nocturnal galleries, where fragments of memory are rearranged into new forms. What feels strange or surreal in a dream is the brain experimenting with metaphor, playing with connections, discovering hidden associations. You are both artist and observer of this secret theater. It is no wonder that so much art is inspired by dreams. They are the original stories of the unconscious, the birthplace of surrealism, myth, and poetry. Every night, imagination rehearses its own infinity. Think of the artists through time who have tried to capture this process. The mysterious smile of Da Vinci's portrait, the soft distortions of Monet's water lilies, the impossible clocks of Dali. Each of them was painting not merely what they saw, but what their minds revealed. They gave form to inner weather. They made consciousness visible. As you rest now, you can sense that same current flowing through you. The creative impulse does not belong to geniuses or eras. It belongs to life itself. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought is a rhythmic composition of existence. The brain is not a machine of logic, but a living poem constantly writing itself into being. There is beauty even in its structure. The folds of the cortex resemble waves and petals, spirals and shells. Nature's own geometry echoed within flesh. The same patterns that guide galaxies appear in the neural loops of thought. It is as if the universe repeats its design from the vast to the intimate. Perhaps that is why art feels sacred. It mirrors the structure of the cosmos. When we draw, when we sing, when we love, we are aligning ourselves with that universal symmetry, becoming instruments of the same order that shapes stars and seas. The mind, then, is not a solitary artist, but a collaborator with creation itself. Each idea, each image, is a bridge between inner and outer worlds. When you imagine, the universe imagines through you. And so the story continues from stone to spirit to self. The next evolution of art will not depend on marble or pigment, but on perception itself, the science of seeing, the rediscovery of wonder through the lens of human vision. The light changes again. It streams through windows of thought, illuminating a new era, an age of perspective, of rebirth, of renaissance. Humanity is about to learn not only how to create, but how to see. Evening settles over the ancient world. The colors fade to amber and violet, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth. In the fading light, imagination turns inward again. The world outside has been shaped, carved, painted, sung. Now the artist begins to study the landscape within. The human mind is not a mirror that merely reflects the world. It is a prism that bends and transforms. Every perception you have is filtered through layers of memory, expectation, and desire. The brain is always editing, arranging, composing, turning raw sensation into the story of self. This is the art of interpretation. It is happening even now in you. As you listen, your mind selects which words to emphasize, which images to keep, which feelings to color them with. No two listeners will build the same scene. Imagination personalizes everything it touches. If we could look inside, we would see an orchestra of movement, billions of neurons firing in patterns that resemble constellations. They flash, fade, and reconnect in endless rhythm. The mind is not a single painter, but a choir of light. Every thought is a note, every feeling a harmony. Together they compose the symphony we call awareness. At the center of this symphony lies attention, the spotlight of consciousness. It decides what to illuminate and what to leave in shadow. Through attention, the artist within chooses the frame. A field of grass can be seen as beauty or as burden, depending on where the light falls. What we call mood is often just the color of that internal light. The human mind is constantly repainting its canvas. Each new experience overlays the old, yet traces remain, faint outlines of the past beneath the fresh paint of the present. Memory is palimpsest. We never see the world anew. We see it layered with everything we have been. That layering gives life its richness. The scent of rain recalls a childhood afternoon. The sound of footsteps awakens the echo of a friend long gone. Art works the same way. A single brushstroke or chord can summon decades of feeling. The artist does not create emotion, they awaken it. The real art happens in the mind of the beholder, where memory and imagination meet. It is here that meaning is born. The brain links sensation to story. It asks, why does this matter? What does this mean to me? That simple question transforms experience into insight. It is the same question that has guided artists since the first pigment touched stone. Meaning-making is the highest form of creativity. It turns the chaos of life into coherence. Through art, we recognize patterns, and in patterns, we find comfort. Even tragedy becomes bearable when shaped into narrative. A story does not erase pain. It frames it, gives it purpose. The act of framing is itself healing. This is why, in times of loss or change, people instinctively turn to art, to music, to poetry, to the simple act of writing or drawing. The mind seeks form for its feeling. To create is to process, to integrate, to understand. The hand that paints or writes is the brain reaching for equilibrium. Neuroscientists see this in scans. When a person makes art, regions associated with fear and anxiety quiet down, while networks for pleasure and self-reflection light up. Creation is a dialogue between control and surrender. Too much control, and the work is rigid. Too much surrender, and it dissolves into chaos. The best art, like the best living, balances the two, structure, breathing with freedom. Somewhere in that balance arises what psychologists call the aha moment, the sudden spark of insight. It is not a thunderclap, but a quiet alignment, a feeling that disparate pieces have finally found their place. The body reacts before the mind can explain. A breath caught, a shiver, a tear. In that instant, art fulfills its ancient purpose to reveal connection where none seemed to exist. Every mind has the potential for that spark. Creativity is not the gift of a few, it is the birthright of all. Each thought you arrange, each problem you solve, each new way you interpret a familiar scene, all are acts of imagination. You are an artist simply by being conscious. The greatest canvas of all is the sense of self. Throughout your life, you are painting your own portrait, layering experiences, emotions, choices, and dreams. You edit, you erase, you add color, you start again. Identity is not fixed. It is an evolving artwork. Every day, you wake and begin a new brushstroke. Sometimes the painting darkens, sometimes it shines. The important thing is that it continues. Like the cave artists who painted by flickering firelight, you keep adding to the wall, knowing that the image will never be finished and that the beauty lies precisely in its becoming. When you close your eyes, you can feel this process still unfolding. Thoughts drift like clouds. Memories surface and fade. Each breath reshapes the inner world. The act of noticing it is itself creative awareness, sculpting awareness. The mind, in its quiet hours, becomes a gallery of echoes. You wander through it, pausing before each image. Some are sharp and bright, others blurred by time, but all belong to you, and through them, you recognize the continuum of your own life, the art of being human. If you could step back far enough, you would see that every human mind contributes a brushstroke to the collective mural of history. Each innovation, each story, each gesture of kindness or cruelty alters the larger picture. Civilization is the sum of these overlapping imaginations. We are co-authors of a single unfolding masterpiece. This realization brings humility. No creation is ever entirely our own. It is shaped by the countless minds that came before. The myths of ancestors, the words of teachers, the songs of strangers all flow into the current we call individuality. The artist, the scientist, the dreamer, all are conduits through which imagination travels. The brain itself seems built for this interconnection. Its mirror neurons allow us to feel another's joy, to flinch at another's pain, to weep at another's story. Empathy is the brush that blends our boundaries. Without it, there could be no art, no culture, no shared understanding. When you stand before a painting or hear a melody that moves you, what you feel is not the artist's emotion exactly, but your own capacity to resonate. Two minds meet across time, each completing the other's circuit. The art lives in that moment of resonance, invisible, yet utterly real. And so, the human mind is both solitary and communal. It creates alone, but communicates together. It dreams in silence, but expresses in sound and color. Every heartbeat echoes the rhythm of all other hearts. Every imagination is a cell within the greater organism of consciousness. This is why art outlives its makers. It is never confined to one life. The image, once born, continues to travel, to evolve, to find new meanings in new eyes. It becomes part of the endless conversation between minds. The cave wall, the tablet, the canvas, the screen all are temporary surfaces for the same eternal dialogue. Now, as the night deepens, the great studio of the mind grows quiet. The lights of thought dim to embers. What remains is a gentle awareness, the silent observer behind the artist, the witness that sees without judging. This awareness is the true source of creativity. It is the still point from which all art arises and to which it returns. Breathe softly. Feel how each breath is a stroke of this invisible brush, shaping the space within you. Every inhale, a gathering of color. Every exhale, a release into form. The act of breathing is itself an artwork: rhythm, balance, renewal. The human mind is the universe learning to imagine itself. Through you, it experiences beauty, sorrow, longing, and hope. Through you, it learns to express, to understand, to love. And in that expression, spirit finds its reflection in matter once more. The story of art is the story of that reflection, shifting through centuries, always changing yet always the same. From the first pigment on stone to the newest pulse of digital light, it is the same gesture repeated, a consciousness reaching outward, asking to be known. Now, the horizon of thought begins to brighten again. A new light spreads through the centuries, the light of discovery, of rediscovery, of awakening. Humanity is about to open its eyes to itself once more. It is morning in Florence, and the world is about to be reborn. The Renaissance within. Morning rises over the hills of Tuscany, soft and golden, brushing the edges of the world with warmth. The bells of Florence echo through narrow streets, their tones weaving through the scent of bread and oil, of paint and stone dust. The city stirs like a living mind, artisans opening their shutters, apprentices carrying jars of pigment, the Arno River catching the new light. It is the 15th century, and humanity has begun to dream awake. For centuries, Europe had looked inward, Its imagination turned toward faith and eternity. Cathedrals reached toward the sky. Their stained glass windows colored the light of God. But now, something shifts. The eyes of humanity turn back to the earth, not away from spirit, but toward its reflection in the world. The Renaissance is not merely a rebirth of art, it is a rediscovery of perception itself. Imagine walking through a studio in Florence. The air is thick with the smell of linseed oil and plaster. Sunlight filters through high windows, falling upon a wooden table where sketches lie scattered, studies of hands, of flowers, of the way light curves around an object. A young artist leans over the page, tracing lines of geometry that will one day shape the face of a Madonna, the wing of an angel, the arc of a human smile. He is studying not just to imitate, but to understand. To the Renaissance mind, art and science are the same pursuit, the quest to see clearly. To observe with precision is to honor creation. To capture light is to capture truth. The artist looks up from his drawing and studies the play of sunlight across the room. He notices how it softens edges, how it gathers in corners, how even shadow seems to glow. In that moment, the act of seeing becomes an act of reverence. Perspective, this new miracle of vision, has changed everything. For the first time, the world on canvas can appear as it does in the eye, deep, dimensional, alive. Painters learn to arrange space as the mind perceives it, leading the viewer's gaze through illusion toward understanding. It is not deception, but revelation. The discovery that the laws of beauty are the same as the laws of nature. Outside, the hum of the city rises. Stonecutters carve marble into human form, each strike of the chisel releasing spirit from matter. Bridges span rivers with graceful arcs. Mathematicians sketch the same curves that masons will later lay in brick. Florence itself becomes a living artwork, the geometry of imagination made real. The artist who embodies this awakening most completely is Leonardo. He moves through the world with quiet wonder, a notebook always in hand. In it, he records everything: the movement of birds, the swirl of water, the anatomy of the human body. He believes that to understand the world is to love it more deeply. His drawings are prayers made of observation. He studies the muscles of the face, the way joy and sorrow shift the skin around the eyes. He notes how laughter rises in waves, how sadness settles like rain. To him, the body is not separate from the soul. It is its expression, its language. Art becomes anatomy. Anatomy becomes philosophy. The Renaissance mind does not see conflict between science and spirit. Both are instruments of awe. Both seek to unveil the harmony hidden beneath appearance. The artist and the astronomer are siblings, each mapping light, each searching for pattern in mystery. And so, humanity begins to step into a new consciousness, one that unites intellect and intuition, reason and imagination. It is as though the species itself has awakened from a long dream and opened its eyes to the wonder of existence. Everywhere, curiosity blossoms. Scholars rediscover the texts of Greece and Rome, reawakening forgotten ideas. Architects read Vitruvius and measure temples with renewed reverence. Sculptors study proportion and balance, seeking in the human body the same divine geometry that governs the stars. In every discipline, the theme is the same: harmony, the balance between light and shadow, motion and stillness, heaven and earth. The Renaissance does not reject the sacred. It reveals that the sacred has always lived within the human mind. You can feel this realization in the art of the time. In Michelangelo's David, that stillness before motion, that perfect calm charged with infinite energy. In Botticelli's Birth of Venus, beauty emerging from chaos, the sea giving birth to consciousness. In Leonardo's Mona Lisa, the mystery of awareness captured in a single quiet gaze. Each of these works is more than representation. They are meditations on perception itself. They ask, what is it to see? What is it to be seen? How does consciousness recognize itself in form? For the first time, the artist is not only a craftsman, but a philosopher, an explorer of mind. He studies the way vision works, how distance shapes experience, how light reveals emotion. He is mapping not just the visible world, but the inner landscape of awareness. And behind this flowering of art lies a new understanding of the brain itself. Though they did not yet know the word for it, they sensed that perception was not passive, but creative, that the act of seeing brings the world into being. In that sense, every painter was a neuroscientist, every sculptor a psychologist, every architect a mathematician of emotion. Consider how the architects of the Renaissance built their cathedrals. They used proportion not only for strength but for serenity. A building could teach peace. A dome could echo the harmony of the heavens. To stand beneath one was to feel balance in the bones. This belief that structure shapes the soul is what made the Renaissance both artistic and humane. It understood that beauty is not decoration, but alignment. To live beautifully was to live in tune with the cosmos. Imagine yourself walking into the Cathedral of Florence at twilight. The great dome of Brunelleschi towers above, its ribs curving like the inside of a vast mind. Candles flicker in alcoves. The sound of footsteps fades into the hush of reverence. Here, the boundary between art and consciousness disappears. The building feels alive, breathing, thinking a cathedral made not of stone, but of imagination made solid. Standing beneath that dome, you understand something that cannot be spoken. That to create beauty is to participate in the unfolding intelligence of the universe. Every brick, every brushstroke, every discovery is the cosmos learning to perceive itself. The Renaissance, for all its masterpieces, is not merely about art. It is about attention. It teaches humanity to notice, to look closer, deeper, more tenderly, to observe how light falls on a leaf, how shadow curves on marble, how a face reveals an entire life in the tilt of a smile. Through this attention, the ordinary becomes sacred. The act of seeing becomes the act of love. As day fades over Florence, the sky deepens to violet again. Artists, philosophers, astronomers all turn toward the same horizon, their eyes lifted by the same curiosity. Somewhere, Leonardo sketches the shape of the moon, the way its light drifts across a cloud. He will later write, "The eye, the window of the soul, is the chief means whereby the understanding can most fully and abundantly appreciate the infinite works of nature." The Renaissance taught us to open that window to let the light in. But it also taught us something subtler, that the light we see outside is the same light that glows within. The artist's gaze is the universe awakening to its own beauty. Night returns to the city. Candles burn low. The sketchers and sculptors sleep in their workshops, waiting for morning. Somewhere in the distance, the stars shimmer like new ideas waiting to be born. And humanity, once again, stands on the threshold of dream, ready to descend from daylight into the landscapes of the subconscious, where imagination weaves its quiet miracles. Night lingers over Florence, the kind of night that glows softly, like a page half lit by a candle. Somewhere beyond the narrow streets, the river breathes. Its surface trembles with the reflections of bridges and stars. A painter stands at his window, hands stained with color. He looks not at the city, but at his own reflection in the glass, and beyond that, at the faint halo of the moon. He realizes that what he sees out there and what he feels within are made of the same light. The pigments that dry on his palette are echoes of something older, the the spectrum inside the mind. He understands what every artist of this age begins to sense, that the true Renaissance is not of marble or canvas, but of perception itself. The new science of the day speaks of the body as mechanism, the heavens as law. Yet the artists discover another truth, that reason and wonder are not enemies, they are partners in a single dance. Every equation has its beauty, every brushstroke its geometry. And between them, humanity begins to find its equilibrium again, the meeting point of logic and dream. In the small rooms where painters grind pigment and philosophers argue about stars, the boundaries between art and experiment dissolve. Galileo sketches the phases of the moon with the same reverence that Leonardo sketched muscles. Vesalius opens the human body and draws it as if mapping a cathedral. The world itself has become a studio. You can hear it in the rhythm of the city, chisels striking stone like heartbeats, apprentices reciting Latin verses while mixing lime and sand, scholars debating motion and shadow in candlelight. Florence hums with curiosity. Ideas move through its streets like wind through trees. Each generation inherits this hum, this restlessness of seeing. The Renaissance never truly ends. It migrates into the psyche of everyone who learns to look closely. To see is to awaken, and to awaken is to create. Inside every person lives a small Florence, a city of thoughts and sensations, streets of memory, towers of belief, hidden gardens of desire. Every day your mind walks through that city, noticing, arranging, rebuilding. You redraw its maps when you learn. You repaint its walls when you dream. Your imagination is the architect of that inner world. Think of the first time you saw sunlight filtering through leaves, the moving lace of brightness and shade. Even if you didn't know it, your brain was learning perspective then, how distance softens edges, how color deepens with shadow, how beauty hides in pattern. The Renaissance masters simply made that learning visible. They studied the way the eye bends lines toward a vanishing point. They measured how light diffuses through air. Yet behind those measurements was always feeling a tenderness toward existence. To them, mathematics was a kind of devotion, an acknowledgement that the universe has rhythm. When you breathe in, your body follows that same geometry, expansion and return, curve and line. When you exhale, you mirror the rhythm of oceans, of orbits, of the brush moving across canvas. Art and life are not parallel. They are the same pulse measured in different mediums. Michelangelo once said that the statue already exists inside the block of stone. The sculptor's task is only to set it free. Perhaps the same is true of the self. Within the uncarved marble of habit and fear lies the form of who you might become, waiting for attention to release it. Every act of awareness is a chisel, every moment of courage a strike toward shape. The Renaissance teaches this quietly, that creation and transformation are one motion. To make art is to change yourself. To truly see beauty outside is to awaken beauty within. Now imagine the painter at dawn cleaning his brushes after a long night. The sky beyond his window is the color of wet clay. He has worked for hours, layering glazes of light, coaxing a face from blankness. He is tired, yet peaceful. He knows that what he paints is not just image, but understanding the way form emerges from emptiness, the way thought takes shape through patience. He washes the last of the pigment from his hands and watches the water swirl with color. It reminds him of the rivers that carry silt to the sea, of creation's endless recycling. Nothing is wasted. Everything transforms. Outside, the city stirs again. Footsteps on cobblestones, the creak of shutters, the first bells. He steps to the window. For a heartbeat, he sees the rooftops glow with the same golden hue that rests on the face of his unfinished painting. He smiles, realizing that the world and his art have met in the same light. The Renaissance was full of such moments, ordinary awakenings in which the artist recognized that the canvas was never separate from the sky. Every cathedral was built in imitation of the human body. Every portrait was a meditation on divinity. Even the most technical discoveries were acts of awe disguised as measurement. To look at a Da Vinci sketch of a flying machine is to see the dream of wings ancient as Icarus, but drawn now with the precision of engineering. The dream and the diagram coexist. That union of imagination with intellect became the engine of modern consciousness. You can feel it in yourself whenever curiosity and wonder meet. The moment you ask how, without losing the feeling of why, you stand at the same threshold as those Florentine dreamers. The mind, in that state, glows with harmony. The logical and the lyrical move together like two hands shaping clay. This is the inner Renaissance, not an era, but a capacity, a way of perceiving the world as endlessly possible. Breathe and notice how that capacity lives quietly in you. Every time you pause to marvel at light, every time you reach for understanding, you are participating in that same rebirth. You are the artist and the witness both. The candle on the painter's table flickers lower. His work waits for the next day's light, but the spirit of creation does not sleep. It moves through the streets, through time, through you. It will soon descend into another landscape, one deeper, stranger, softer, the world of dreams, where reason loosens its grasp and imagination begins to flow without form. The Renaissance opened the eyes of day. What comes next will open the eyes of night. Night descends again over the dreaming city. The domes and towers of Florence fade into shadow, and lamps flicker one by one along the river. The noise of the streets dissolves into the murmur of water, the whisper of the wind through narrow arches. In this darkness, another kind of light awakens the inward glow of imagination, unbound by daylight's rules. The same minds that measured perspective by day begin to wander its corridors by night. They dream of worlds that twist and fold, of angels made of geometry, of machines that fly like birds. Sleep to them is not absence but laboratory. In the stillness of the body, the imagination continues its work. Every dream carries the logic of the Renaissance, transformation through vision. The painter who studies anatomy dreams of bodies turning to cloud. The architect who draws perfect circles dreams of labyrinths that refuse symmetry. The subconscious, released from proportion, begins to play. It bends the straight lines of reason into spirals of possibility. In that play, something extraordinary happens. The human being, newly confident in reason, meets again the mystery of emotion. The age that worshipped balance discovers that balance is never still. It is movement, the constant exchange between clarity and chaos. Even the most rational mind must dream, for dreaming is how reason renews itself. Centuries later, this current of night will resurface in the art of the surrealists, who paint not what they see, but what they remember seeing in sleep. Yet its origin is here, in the quiet afterglow of the Renaissance, the recognition that light and shadow are not enemies, but companions. Without darkness, form would have no depth. Without imagination, knowledge would have no soul. Consider how the brain itself mirrors this rhythm. By day, the prefrontal cortex directs, decides, defines. By night, the networks of memory and emotion weave their own associations. Each morning, they offer the waking mind new combinations, inventions, insights, metaphors. The artist is simply one who listens to those offerings and learns their language. Listen now to your own. Beneath the surface of thought, images stir. A door opening to the sea, a child's laughter echoing through marble halls. the shape of a hand reaching toward light. They are fragments of yourself, painted in the hues of memory. The mind creates them effortlessly, blending past and present, desire and curiosity, until the boundary between real and imagined disappears. This inner renaissance continues every night in every mind. The neurons that once built temples and cathedrals now build dreams, delicate architectures of meaning, lit by the same mysterious fire. You are the builder, the dreamer, the observer. In the act of dreaming, you rediscover what the Renaissance knew, that creation is endless. The city sleeps, but thought does not. In an upper room, a scholar writes by candlelight. He has spent the day measuring the heavens, and now, half asleep, his quill drifts across the page. The circles of his diagrams blur into halos, into orbits, into faces. He does not notice the moment when mathematics becomes art. When he wakes, he will call it insight. Far below, the river carries the moon in its current, breaking it into 1,000 moving pieces. Each ripple is a version of the same light, each fragment complete in itself. So too is every act of imagination, a reflection of something whole, yet newly shaped by the flow of mind. The Renaissance began as a turning of the gaze outward, but it ends as a turning inward. Humanity discovers that the world it measures is the same world it imagines. To see is to create. To dream is to understand. Art becomes the mirror of consciousness itself. When morning comes, the streets will fill again with sound and sunlight. Apprentices will open the studios. Philosophers will gather in the squares. The bells will ring over the rooftops. But somewhere within each person, beneath the arguments, the errands, the calculations, the quiet glow of imagination will remain. It is the ember that keeps the human spirit warm through every age. And as the centuries unfold, that ember will travel. It will ignite new fires in Paris, in Vienna, in New York, in every mind that looks at the world and wonders, what if? The tools will change, the materials will evolve, but the light will be the same. Breathe softly now. Feel that continuity moving through you, the lineage of curiosity and awe. You are part of this long awakening, this endless rebirth of perception. The Renaissance is not behind you, it is within you. Every time you notice the color of evening, every time you feel gratitude for beauty, every time you imagine a better world, you live its spirit again. The painter's candle finally burns out. Smoke curls into the air, joining the shadows. Yet the room is not dark. A faint silver dawn begins to rise beyond the window. Another chapter waits, one written in the language of sleep and memory, where the mind, now free from reason's architecture, drifts into the deeper currents of vision and dream. Dreams, night and vision. Dawn fades, evening gathers. The air cools and softens until the whole horizon seems to exhale. You close your eyes and feel that ancient transition between day and night, the same border every creature has crossed since the beginning of time. In that quiet borderland, imagination opens its wings. The body rests, yet the mind remains awake in another way. Thoughts loosen, images drift, the senses no longer obey the strict laws of daylight. This is the domain of dream, the oldest gallery of the soul. Long before there were paintings or poems, there were dreams. Every human who has ever lived has entered this inner theater, where the ordinary world dissolves and another rises in its place. Here mountains can speak, rivers remember, and time folds like silk. Dreams are the mind's nightly rehearsal for creation, its laboratory of possibility. Picture yourself lying beneath a sky of shifting light. The stars pulse like neurons, whole constellations firing in rhythm. Each pulse is a fragment of memory, a scent, a face, a fragment of song. They swirl and collide until they form new patterns. This is how the dreaming brain paints not with pigment, but with memory and emotion. Inside your head, small electrical storms travel from the hippocampus, where experience is stored, to the visual cortex, where images live. The amygdala colors them with feeling joy, fear, longing. Then, in a kind of gentle alchemy, fragments of the past combine into scenes that have never existed. Every dream is an act of invention. Every night, you become an artist of the unseen. Somewhere in the distance, perhaps in ancient Mesopotamia, a priest once woke before dawn and recorded the shapes that visited him in sleep. He believed they were messages from the gods. Thousands of years later, Freud would call them the language of the unconscious. Both were right in their own way. Dreams speak in symbols because symbols are the native language of the mind. When you dream of flying, it is not about wings, but freedom. When you wander through an endless house, it is your own psyche opening its doors. When you stand before a sea without shore, it is the vastness of possibility whispering back to you. The mind does not waste its metaphors. It paints emotion in image. In the early 20th century, artists would begin to chase this inner light deliberately. They called it surrealism, but it is as old as the first fire. To them, the unconscious was not a shadow, but a hidden sun. Dali's melting clocks, Magritte's floating men, Miraut's cosmic scribbles, all are invitations to wander the dream awake. Their art is not nonsense. It is another kind of sense, one that refuses to be caged by logic. Science now knows what those artists intuited. The creativity and dreaming share the same neural pathways. Both rely on the brain's default network, the gentle hum that begins when the outer world goes silent. In that state, ideas mingle freely. Old memories find new companions. Impossible connections suddenly make sense. Dreams are imagination without censorship. They remind us that order and chaos are partners in the dance of creation. You feel that dance now, faintly behind your eyelids. Colors ripple, shapes shimmer. They have no edges yet, only potential. This is how every painting begins, in the half-light between control and surrender. The artist who learns to trust that space learns to listen to the deeper rhythm beneath. In many cultures, dreams were bridges between the human and the divine. The Aboriginal people of Australia speak of the dreaming as the timeless layer beneath reality, the source of all pattern and story. In their songs and paintings, the waking world and the dream world are one continuous field. To live is to remember that field and keep singing it into being. In ancient Greece, the temple of Asclepius was filled with sleepers seeking healing through sacred dreams. Priests recorded their visions at dawn, interpreting them as medicine for the spirit. The act of dreaming was not private, but communal, a ritual of renewal shared across generations. Today, though we may no longer sleep in temples, the function is the same. Each night, the nervous system resets, the mind processes emotion, the heart untangles its knots. Dreams are the therapy of nature, the art of equilibrium. They take the raw canvas of experience and repaint it until harmony returns. Sometimes they disturb us chasing, falling, forgetting, but even those restless dreams serve a purpose. They allow the body to release fear safely within story, to rehearse danger without harm. In their strange logic lies wisdom older than thought, that feeling must move to heal. The Surrealists honored that wisdom by painting without plan. They called it automatism, letting the hand move before the mind decides. In that freedom, hidden images emerged. It was not madness, it was a method of listening to the unconscious. The brush, like the dream, found meaning by wandering. You can practice the same art in silence. As you lie still, let thoughts drift without grasping them. Notice how images appear: a color, a landscape, a face, and fade on their own. This is the waking version of dreaming, the soft focus where intuition speaks. It is the well from which all creative insight rises. Now, imagine walking through a gallery made entirely of dreams. The walls shift with every step. Here hangs a painting of clouds shaped like cities. There, a corridor leading to your childhood home. Voices whisper, not in words, but in feeling. Each canvas glows faintly, as if lit from within. You realize that you have been here many times, though you always forget on waking. This is the museum of the mind, and it never closes. The air is warm, filled with a faint scent of rain and memory. You pause before one image, a horizon fading into gold. You cannot tell if it is sunrise or sunset. The uncertainty feels peaceful. That is the gift of dream, the ability to hold opposites without conflict. Night and day, loss and joy, the real and the imagined, all coexist in quiet equilibrium. Breathe softly. You are walking through the oldest art of humanity, the art that requires no audience, no approval, no permanence. The art that renews itself with every sleep. When you wake, its colors will fade from memory, but their influence will remain a subtle realignment of thought, a softening of fear, a spark of inspiration waiting to be born. Outside the dream, the world waits, but for now, stay here. Let the mind wander deeper into its own ocean. The next tide will bring you to the shore of waking imagination, where the visions of sleep become the seeds of art, empathy, and invention. The night holds steady, warm and breathing. The stars have drifted higher, their light like fine dust on the skin of the world. Somewhere below, a river turns, its surface catching glimmers of silver. The same light that traces the river also glows faintly behind your closed eyes. In its reflection, the border between the outer sky and the inner sky dissolves. You are dreaming again, but this time the dream feels aware of itself. It knows it is being dreamed. Colors bloom and recede. The air shivers with music that has no source. Every sound becomes shape, every shape a feeling. The logic of daylight is gone. In its place flows a softer reasoning, the logic of association, where meaning drifts like water through open hands. You begin to notice that the dream is not random. Its images come from somewhere, fragments of your day, echoes of your childhood, faces you've glimpsed only once. The mind, it seems, never forgets. It stores every detail in the deep arc of the hippocampus, waiting for night to rearrange them into new constellations. Dreaming is not it is editing. The brain is revising the story of your cutting, layering, finding coherence. Scientists who watch the sleeping brain through the lens of machines see bursts of activity like fireworks across the cortex. Regions that rest in daylight awaken in sleep. The visual centers glow as if eyes were open. The amygdala pulses with emotion. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, grows quiet. With reason resting, imagination takes command. This is why dreams feel truthful, even when impossible, because they bypass judgment and speak directly to feeling. The ancient poets knew this without instruments. They said that in sleep, the soul travels, gathering messages from the beyond. Today, we might call it integration, not prophecy, yet the mystery is the same. The mind heals itself by inventing stories. Each dream is a rehearsal for empathy. When you dream of another person, your brain lights up as if you truly met them. You feel their fear, their joy, their longing. In that shared simulation, the borders of identity blur. Dreaming teaches compassion long before waking. Consciousness understands it. This ability to enter another's world, to imagine a life not our own, is what later artists will call vision. It is the bridge between self and other, between what is and what could be. Every novelist, every painter, every musician who ever tried to express another's sorrow is walking the same bridge built in the architecture of sleep. When you wake from a vivid dream, Notice the residue it leaves: a mood, a color, a question that follows you through the morning. That residue is imagination's signature. It's how the unconscious whispers to the waking mind, there is more to see. Artists listen to that whisper deliberately. They cultivate the liminal state between sleep and wakefulness, the hypnagogic hour when images float untethered and ideas appear whole. Edison, Coleridge, and Dali all practiced this half-sleep as ritual. They held objects in their hands so that, when they began to drift, the fall would wake them just as the vision arrived. Between rest and reason, imagination blooms. The painter sketches what he glimpsed in that moment, an image so fragile that daylight almost erases it. The composer hums a melody remembered from nowhere. The writer jots a line that feels older than language. These are fragments of dream, caught before they fade. They are the seeds from which waking art grows. In this way, dreams and creation are a single process divided by a thin veil. At night, the mind paints freely. By day, it refines the picture. The artist's task is to carry as much of the night as possible into the light. Imagine again the surrealists, their canvases alive with melting timepieces, floating eyes, stairways leading to sky. They were not inventing madness. They were transcribing the hidden logic of the mind. Every distortion in their art mirrors a truth about perception, that reality itself is fluid, filtered through consciousness. In your own dreaming, you experience the same flexibility. You might walk through walls, speak with the dead, become another person entirely. In those moments, your brain rehearses transformation. It proves that identity is not fixed but fluid, that imagination is capable of infinite perspective. The same neural plasticity that allows dreams to shapeshift is what allows you to grow, to learn, to empathize. Dreaming, then, is not escape but education. It teaches adaptation through metaphor. It allows the mind to experiment safely with change. The child who dreams of falling learns to trust the ground again. The artist who dreams of light learns to translate it into color. Every dream, no matter how strange, contributes to the quiet evolution of understanding. The philosophers of the Renaissance suspected as much. They spoke of fantasia, the imagination, as a bridge between sense and intellect, body and spirit. To them, the dream was a proof that the human soul could create worlds as God creates them, from nothing but desire and light. As centuries passed, this belief deepened into science. We learned that the visual cortex, the same region that receives light from the eyes, also generates light of its own in darkness. The brain does not merely record the world, it paints it continuously. Dreaming is that painting without interruption. It is no coincidence that many of history's great discoveries arrived first in dreams. The double helix, the sewing machine, the periodic table each appeared as image before idea. The dreaming mind connects dots, the waking mind keeps apart. It sees pattern where reason sees confusion. Perhaps then, the universe itself dreams through us, a consciousness exploring its own reflection. Every dream we have, every image we make, is a small echo of that greater imagination unfolding across galaxies and generations. Outside, a wind stirs through the trees. The branches sway in rhythm with your breathing. The world seems to dream with you. In that union, the boundary between self and cosmos blurs. The same laws of pattern and symmetry that guide the stars guide the synapses of your brain. You are, quite literally, made of the same matter that once burned in suns. When you dream of light, the atoms of ancient stars remember their original fire. Now the dream shifts again. You find yourself walking through a corridor of mirrors. Each one reflects not your face, but a scene, a memory, a possibility, an emotion. In one, you are a child painting with water on stone. In another, you are old, watching rain slide down glass. You realize that each reflection is an aspect of imagination itself, the countless ways the mind translates existence into story. You reach the end of the corridor and find a door half open. Through it glows a gentle radiance, neither daylight nor moonlight, but something in between. You step through and feel the atmosphere change. The dream is dissolving, but its essence remains clarity without form, awareness without boundary. This is the state of insight, the meeting of dream and reason. The artists who touched it called it inspiration. The mystics called it illumination. The neuroscientists call it integration. It is all the same moment, the union of conscious and unconscious, the mind recognizing itself as creator. Rest in that glow. It is the birthplace of every vision, every poem, every act of empathy. It is the moment when imagination opens its eyes. The glow widens around you. It doesn't blind. It unfolds, gentle as breath. Within it, shapes begin to appear, not of things, but of ideas made visible, the architecture of imagination itself. Here, color and thought are the same substance. Sound becomes texture. Emotion becomes a landscape. The dream has turned inside out. You are standing in the mind's own light. You notice that this inner world feels familiar. Every hill and horizon seems built from memory, yet arranged in ways you've never seen. The path beneath your feet is made of fragments of moments. Laughter from long ago, a scent from childhood, the shimmer of sunlight on water. The mind has stitched them together into new geography. It is a reminder that creativity is not invention from nothing, but recombination, the art of rearranging what has always been into what has never yet existed. In this realization lies freedom. You do not need to search for inspiration outside yourself. It moves quietly within, waiting for attention. The same neural networks that dream in darkness are the ones that imagine in daylight. Each time you pause to wonder, each time you allow a question to unfold without forcing an answer, you enter the same luminous territory where dream and waking meet. Artists through the ages have sought this threshold. Some found it in solitude, others in prayer or meditation, still others in the rhythm of their work. The common thread is surrender, the willingness to listen rather than command. True vision is receptive. It comes when the mind grows silent enough for the deeper patterns to emerge. Look again around you in this dream. The landscape begins to shift, becoming more abstract strokes of color moving like tides. Then from within that movement, an image coalesces. A single human eye, vast and calm, gazing outward. It is the symbol that will guide the next part of the story. The mind's eye, the power of imagination to see beyond sight. The vision changes again. You are surrounded by countless faces, drawn from every era of history, cave painters and priests, sculptors and scientists, dancers, poets and dreamers. Their expressions are quiet, almost knowing. You sense that they are not separate from you, but reflections of the same consciousness spread across time. Each one has carried a piece of the same light through their brief existence, adding it to the great continuum of human seeing. Somewhere among them, the Renaissance painters look upward. Beside them stand the builders of cathedrals and the singers of ancient chants. Farther still, the nameless hands that once traced animals on cave walls. All are linked by an invisible thread, the desire to translate inner vision into outer form. That thread hums through you now, the inheritance of every imagination that came before. You begin to understand. Dreaming is not a private act. Every vision that stirs within you contributes to the collective reservoir of thought. When you dream of flight, You echo the countless before you who dreamed of wings. When you imagine peace, you strengthen its possibility in the shared field of mind that connects all living things. Consciousness is communal. Imagination is its language. This sense of connection deepens. You feel the boundaries of your body soften. Your breathing slows until it matches the rhythm of the wind outside, the pulse of oceans, the quiet beat of distant stars. You realize that you have entered the oldest meditation of all, the one the universe performs each moment through the cycle of creation and rest. The dream begins to thin, its edges dissolving into the dark, yet its essence remains, a subtle current of clarity. You carry it with you as you return toward waking. The body stirs, the eyelids tremble. The first light of dawn presses gently against them. When you open your eyes, the world looks slightly different. Colors seem softer, but deeper, as though they carry the memory of the night's visions. Sounds arrive slower, fuller. You notice the faint pattern of shadow on the wall, the reflection of morning sky in a glass of water. Everything feels newly made. This is what dreams do. They refresh perception, wash the dust from sight. The mind that dreamed in darkness now sees the same beauty in daylight. The two realms are not opposites, but phases of one continuous vision. Night imagining the world, day giving it form. The painter's canvas, the scientist's equation, the poet's verse, all are ways of remembering the dream. You breathe and feel the quiet pulse of possibility inside you. The brain is awake, yet a trace of the night remains, a shimmer of intuition, a softness of thought. Hold that state gently. It is the bridge between vision and action, the place where empathy and creativity dwell. Through this bridge, humanity will walk again and again, translating its dreams into cathedrals, symphonies, inventions, and revolutions. Every great step forward begins as an image seen in the dark. The power of imagination is not to escape reality, but to reveal its hidden dimensions. As you sit in the hush of morning, imagine the countless others awakening with you across the planet, each mind carrying fragments of its own night. Together, they form the tapestry of the world's collective dream, the vast, unfinished artwork of consciousness. The light strengthens. The first birds begin to call. The dream fades completely now, leaving only gratitude for the mystery of seeing, for the continuity between sleeping and waking, for the endless creativity that sustains existence. And so, the story moves forward from the visions of night to the eye of imagination itself, where humanity learns to shape not only images, but meaning. The next chapter begins not in the dark, but in the quiet radiance behind the eyes, the mind's eye. The mind's eye. Morning has opened fully now. The world is quiet, washed clean by light. Mist still lingers over the fields. Dew gathers on blades of grass, each droplet a miniature sun. You breathe, and the air feels new, as if even the atmosphere has been rewritten overnight. This is how imagination feels when it wakes, clear, reflective, alive with possibility. The dreams have retreated to the edges of memory, yet their essence remains. They have left behind a soft residue, images without context, feelings without name. These fragments hover in the mind like sparks waiting for shape. The same networks that carried the night's visions now open to daylight, transforming memory into idea. The mind, freshly rested, begins to paint again, this time with the colors of waking thought. Inside your skull, a vast landscape hums into motion. Neurons reach toward one another, exchanging currents of light. Each connection is a bridge between perception and imagination, between what you have seen and what you can still conceive. The mind's eye opens. It is not a single organ, but a constellation of regions. The visual cortex sculpting form, the prefrontal cortex weaving intention, the parietal lobes mapping space, the limbic system infusing emotion. Together they form a living instrument of vision. You see not only with the eyes, but with the entire orchestra of the brain. Look around you now. The way sunlight slides across a wall, the faint tremor of air in the leaves. Your eyes deliver only photons and shadows, but the mind translates them into meaning. It recognizes pattern, infers distance, recalls memories of warmth and morning. Vision, in truth, is imagination at work. The brain completes what the eyes begin. This power, to conjure worlds inside the skull, is what we call the mind's eye. It allows you to see the absent, to hold the distant, to shape what has never been. When you recall a face, the neurons in your visual cortex fire almost exactly as they did when you first looked upon it. When you imagine a mountain or a melody, your brain behaves as if those things were before you. Imagination is simulation. The mind rehearses reality. Every creative act, from the simplest daydream to the grandest symphony, depends on this inner sight. It is the link between memory and invention. Without it, there would be no art, no science, no empathy. For to imagine is also to understand what another feels, to project oneself into a world not one's own. You can feel this process in motion when you read. The words on a page are mere symbols, yet within seconds they unfold into living images. The smell of rain, the sound of footsteps, the turning of a face, all appear inside you, vivid and private. This silent theater of the mind is as old as humanity. Every story ever told has played upon its stage. Close your eyes for a moment and test it. Picture a small flame. Watch it flicker and lean in invisible wind. Notice how the color shifts from blue to gold, how heat seems to radiate though no heat exists. You have just created an image from nothing but thought. The flame is unreal, yet the experience of seeing it is genuine. Your brain has simulated the light. Such is the quiet miracle of inner vision. Artists have always trusted this faculty. The sculptor sees the figure trapped in marble before the first strike of the chisel. The architect walks through the completed building while it still exists only in ink. The composer hears the full orchestra while the room remains silent. They are guided not by sight, but by the mind's eye, that inward lens that reveals form before it appears. Science, too, begins with imagination. Einstein once said he thought in images rather than words. He would picture himself riding alongside a beam of light and then ask what physics would allow such a journey. The equations came later, but the vision came first. Every discovery begins as a picture in the mind. Neuroscience shows that imagination and perception share neural territory. The same circuits that register the outer world are recruited to build the inner one. When you visualize, you are borrowing the machinery of vision for thought. This is why vivid imagining can quicken the heart or bring tears to the eyes. The body cannot always distinguish between seeing and believing. Athletes use this to train. They rehearse every movement in their minds. The swing of an arm, the flight of a ball. Their muscles learn through mental simulation. Creativity uses the same principle. The artist paints the picture internally until the hands simply follow. The mind's eye is rehearsal for reality. Yet inner vision is more than utility. It is sanctuary. In its depth we find solace, memory, possibility. The mind's eye holds not only what we hope for, but what we have lost. When you remember someone you love, you summon them into presence. The neurons that once responded to their smile light again, if only for an instant. In that sense, imagination defeats absence. It allows affection to outlive time. This power carries responsibility. The same imagination that creates art also creates fear. The brain can picture disaster as vividly as beauty. The body responds accordingly. Anxiety is imagination turned against itself. But even here, the mind's eye teaches us. By watching our own inner imagery with compassion, we learn to reshape it. Visualization, practiced gently, can calm the nervous system, slow the breath, steady the pulse. What began as survival has become self-care. Think of the quiet rituals artists have always used to enter their work. Deep breathing, silence, a repeated phrase or prayer. These are methods of aligning body and mind so that the inner eye opens wider. The same methods soothe the anxious, focus the distracted, comfort the grieving. Art and healing are twin branches of the same root, attention. As you breathe now, you can sense how the simple act of noticing, the rhythm of air, the expansion of the chest, creates stillness. In that stillness, images rise unforced. You see perhaps a horizon, a face, a color that has no name. They arrive and fade like clouds. You do not chase them, you witness. This is the mind's eye at rest, receptive, awake, unhurried. Through such states, creativity becomes meditation. The artist does not impose order, but discovers it, as though brushing dust from a pattern already carved beneath. Neuroscientists observe the same pattern in brain scans. During creative flow, regions of control quiet down while associative networks synchronize. Thought moves without friction. The brain, like the artist, follows the natural current of its own design. This current flows through everyone. You feel it when insight arrives suddenly, when a problem untangles itself in a flash. The moment seems small but luminous, a corridor of understanding opening where none existed before. Such flashes are not random. They are the surface ripples of a deeper, constant motion beneath awareness. The mind is always imagining, even when you are not aware of it. Throughout history, people have tried to depict this invisible process. In medieval paintings, inspiration is shown as a beam of light entering the artist's head. In Eastern traditions, it is the opening of the inner eye, the Aina, symbol of wisdom and vision beyond sight. Across cultures, the metaphor is the same. Enlightenment as illumination. To imagine is to bring light into darkness. Light, in its physical form, travels through space. In its mental form, it travels through understanding. Each time you learn something new or create something beautiful, you extend that inner light a little further. The Renaissance masters painted halos around thinkers and saints, not to depict divinity, but to visualize cognition itself, the glow of awareness. That glow is the same in you. Pause for a moment and feel it. The subtle brightness behind thought, the gentle hum of being aware. This is not fantasy, it is physiology. Billions of neurons exchanging information, each pulse of electricity a spark of consciousness. The universe creates stars by fusion. The brain creates awareness by connection. Both shine. As daylight moves across the landscape outside, you realize that seeing with the eyes and seeing with the mind are parts of one act. The outer world feeds the inner. The inner shapes how the outer is perceived. Between them lies the miracle of interpretation, the ability to find meaning. The mind's eye is therefore not simply an organ of imagination, but the seat of empathy. To picture another's pain or joy is to engage the same circuits that would feel it directly. This neural mirroring is how compassion becomes tangible. When you imagine someone's happiness, you participate in it. When you visualize peace, the body responds with calm. Imagination is the rehearsal not only for art, but for kindness. As the morning matures, shadows shorten, and the air thickens with warmth. The dream of night has merged fully into the daylight of consciousness. Yet somewhere within, that quiet radiance persists, the inner eye still open, still perceiving. You carry it into every glance, every thought, every act of creation. And in carrying it, you become part of the lineage of all who have ever imagined. The cave painter, the sculptor, the scientist, the poet, the child building shapes from clouds. The mind's eye connects them all, bridging millennia in a single act of seeing. Breathe once more, slow and deep. Let the light settle. The next chapter will rise from this same calm, an exploration of how imagination reaches beyond itself, shaping empathy, innovation, and the future of art. For now, rest within the quiet brilliance of awareness, the luminous space where vision begins. Afternoon light falls across the world like a long sigh. It rests on rooftops, glides through open windows, spills over faces caught in thought. The day has reached its still point, the hour when everything glows yet nothing rushes. Within that golden hush, the mind turns once more toward its own horizon. You can feel it, a soft expansion behind the eyes, a sense that seeing has deepened into understanding. The mind's eye, now fully awake, is not content merely to visualize. It begins to connect, to empathize, to invent. Its light extends outward, touching the world it once only observed. In this extension lies the true artistry of consciousness. Every creature perceives, but only humans imagine what others might perceive. This is empathy, the imagination of emotion. When you picture the joy of a friend or the suffering of a stranger, your brain recreates their experience in miniature. Mirror neurons fire, the same circuits that would activate if you were living the moment yourself. Through imagination, feeling becomes shared. The mind's eye is therefore a moral sense as much as a creative one. It allows civilization to exist. Without it, compassion would be impossible, and art would lose its soul. The painter, the storyteller, the actor, all depend on this capacity to step inside another life. The neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti, who first observed mirror neurons, called them the bridge between doing and understanding. But long before science named them, art had practiced their truth. Think of the ancient dramas of Greece, where the audience wept for heroes who never lived. Think of the frescoes that once lined monastery walls, teaching love and mercy through color and gesture. Each work of art is a mirror held up to consciousness, inviting the viewer to see not only what is depicted, but what stirs within. The mind's eye recognizes itself in those images. This same mechanism fuels innovation. When an inventor imagines a tool, or a scientist pictures an experiment's result, they are rehearsing reality in advance. Their brains test possibilities before hands touch metal or glass. Imagination is nature's prototype lab, risk-free, infinitely adaptable. The great achievements of technology, from the wheel to the telescope to the circuit, began as inner visions. Every material creation is first a dream-given structure. And yet, the mind's eye does not belong solely to intellect. Its deepest power is emotional synthesis, the weaving of memory, sensation, and meaning into coherence. The writer gathers fragments of experience and arranges them until they resonate with truth. The listener or reader, engaging those words, rebuilds the same pattern within their own neural architecture. Art is the transmission of organized emotion from one brain to another through the medium of imagination. Modern imaging technology shows this elegantly when a person listens to a vivid description, say of cinnamon or ocean spray. The sensory areas of their brain activate as though the stimulus were present. Words become scent, sound, and color. The storyteller's imagery literally awakens the listener's senses. In that moment, minds synchronize. The inner eyes of two people see the same invisible world. Such synchronization is the quiet miracle of communication. It reminds us that language is not merely sound, but shared vision. Each conversation, each work of art, is a meeting of imaginations. The mind's eye looks outward and finds itself mirrored in another's gaze. Through this mutual reflection, consciousness evolves. Consider how a single idea spreads. A scientist imagines a pattern in nature and shares it in a sketch. Another mind receives the sketch, transforms it, refines it, builds upon it. Over generations, that chain of shared imagining shapes the world. Medicine, architecture, music, philosophy. Civilization is cumulative imagination made visible. When we lose sight of that, when we imagine only for ourselves, the inner eye narrows. But when we imagine together, it widens again, gathering light from every direction. The greatest artists and thinkers have always understood this. They did not create to isolate, but to connect. Their works invite us into their perception, offering not answers, but ways of seeing. Take Leonardo's sketches of the human heart, part anatomy, part poetry. He drew not only the organ, but the movement of blood, the rhythm of life. He imagined flow long before it could be measured. His vision allowed others to see their own vitality anew. The same principle guides all true creation. It teaches people to look again. Now, close your eyes. Behind the darkness, the inner field glows faintly. Picture a circle of light slowly expanding. It represents attention, your awareness widening to include not just yourself, but the whole spectrum of existence. The people you love, the strangers you'll never meet, the forests, the oceans, the stars. Each inclusion adds color. Each recognition of connection brightens the image. This is empathy in its purest form, the imagination of unity. When humanity forgets this vision, art becomes ornament. When it remembers, art becomes revelation. The difference lies not in skill, but in sincerity. A drawing made with genuine wonder carries more light than a masterpiece made for pride. The mind's eye perceives authenticity. It responds to truth instinctively. The eyes may be fooled, but the inner vision cannot be deceived. Through this understanding, creation becomes an ethical act. To imagine kindly is to contribute peace to the collective mind. To imagine cruelly is to darken it. The images we nurture shape the world we inhabit. Every architect of culture, whether painter or politician, scientist or storyteller, works within the same delicate responsibility to see clearly and share wisely. Yet, even as we imagine outward, the mind's eye turns inward again, seeking self-knowledge. What is this awareness that sees itself seeing? Neuroscience can trace the circuits. Philosophy can name the paradox. But the direct experience remains mysterious. Consciousness, observing consciousness, is like light trying to illuminate its own source. Artists approach this mystery through metaphor. A self-portrait, a poem, a melody about memory. Each is an attempt to witness the witness. When you stand before a mirror and meet your own gaze, the same question arises. Who is looking through these eyes? The answer is not found in thought, but in presence. For a brief instant, the observer and the observed merge. You simply are. That state, wordless, luminous, whole, is the essence of creative awareness. From it, imagination flows effortlessly as rivers flow from mountain snow. The artist, working in that clarity, does not feel separate from the work. They feel guided by something larger. Some call it inspiration, others spirit, others still the default mode of the mind when freed from noise. Whatever the name, it is the same timeless current that has carried creation from the first cave painting to every heartbeat of invention since. Breathe deeply. Feel that current moving through you. It asks for nothing, yet it animates everything. To imagine is to participate in the ongoing act of creation that began long before humanity and will continue long after. The mind's eye is its lens, your awareness, the open aperture. Outside, the light of afternoon begins to fade, sliding gently toward dusk. Shadows lengthen, the air cools. The world slows once more into the rhythm of reflection. You feel gratitude for the capacity to see, to dream, to empathize, to create. Each of these is an aspect of the same gift, consciousness aware of itself. As the first stars appear, you sense the narrative expanding again. Soon imagination will turn to its next frontier, the meeting of art and technology, of human creativity and mechanical mind. The age of machines waits just beyond the horizon, gleaming like a second dawn. Before you step into that brightness, rest for a moment in this twilight, this serene intersection of vision and understanding. The mind's eye remains open, calm, and luminous. It has learned to see both inward and outward, to find reflection in all things. And as night settles, it continues to glow quietly, an ember of awareness carried forward into the next era of imagination. Art in the age of machines. The last light of the Renaissance fades into the distance like the final notes of the choir, and the modern world begins to hum. It is a different kind of music now, metallic, rhythmic, alive with motion. Wheels turn, pistons strike, gears find each other's teeth. Humanity has built an extension of its own pulse. At first, the sound is exhilarating. Fire harnessed, steam mastered, iron bent to will. The dream of the alchemists has come true. The elements themselves obey. But beneath the excitement lies another feeling, wonder mixed with unease. For the first time, we create not only images of life, but mechanisms that mimic it. The artist looks at the machine and feels both kinship and challenge. It begins with lenses and mirrors. The Renaissance passion for optics evolves into devices that trap light itself. The camera obscura projects the world onto a wall. Then, with the discovery of chemistry, the image stays. Photography is born, the first art where light paints its own portrait. Imagine that moment, a sheet of metal or glass, exposed to the sun, slowly revealing a human face. The sitter holds still, breath shallow, eyes fixed on a single point. Then, minutes later, the image appears, a likeness caught in silver crystals. It is as if the soul has left a trace on the world. People call it magic, then science, then art. The painter, long accustomed to interpreting reality by hand, must now confront a new mirror that renders detail with ruthless honesty. Some despair, others rejoice. The Romantic poets warn that the machine might steal the mystery from beauty, yet the photographers find mystery within precision. They learn that truth itself can be poetic. The quiet dignity of a worker, the fragile light on a child's face, the way time stops when the shutter clicks. The camera, though mechanical, becomes an instrument of empathy. It teaches humanity to see each other anew, unfiltered by memory or myth. In those frozen moments, we begin to realize that art is not bound to one medium, but to the act of perception itself. Soon the still image begins to move. Frames flicker in rapid succession, tricking the eye into continuity. The first films show ordinary things: workers leaving a factory, waves breaking, a train arriving at a station. Crowds gather in dark rooms to witness them, gasping as the locomotive rushes toward the screen. They know it isn't real, yet their hearts race. The mind believes what it sees, even when it knows it dreams. Cinema becomes the new cathedral. People sit together in darkness, faces lit by trembling light, sharing emotion in collective silence. The flickering images on the screen are dreams made communal. The same circuits that once painted on cave walls now project stories onto silver. The technology has changed, but the impulse is the same: to see, to feel, to remember together. With film comes a new form of imagination: montage, the art of time itself. By cutting and arranging images, filmmakers discover they can sculpt emotion as a painter sculpts form. A glance, a gesture, a movement of clouds, placed in sequence, becomes narrative. The brain, always seeking pattern, fills the gaps and finds meaning. The screen becomes a mirror of the mind's own editing. In this age of machines, humanity learns something profound: that tools do not replace imagination, they extend it. Each new invention opens a new sensory door. Photography expands sight, cinema expands memory, the phonograph expands hearing. The mind adapts, absorbing its creations as parts of itself. But with every expansion comes reflection. The more faithfully we reproduce reality, the more we question what reality is. When a photograph can capture a person's likeness perfectly, we begin to ask what a likeness truly means. When a voice can be recorded, we begin to wonder where presence resides, and philosophy entwine again. The machine becomes not merely tool, but metaphor. Painters respond by breaking the rules of representation. Impressionism turns the lens inward, showing how light feels rather than how it looks. Cubism fractures space, reflecting the way the mind perceives from multiple viewpoints at once. Surrealism dives into the unconscious, translating dreams into imagery that no camera could capture. Each movement is both rebellion and evolution, a dialogue between the mechanical eye and the human soul. The poet Paul Valéry once wrote that just as water, gas, and electricity are brought into our homes, so too will art be brought by wire. He was right. Radio carries voices through the air. Television brings images into living rooms. Humanity has discovered a new canvas that stretches across the globe. The tribe around the fire has become a planet around a network of light. At first, these inventions seem purely mechanical, but the mind adapts them into extensions of imagination. The radio storyteller learns to paint with sound, using tone and silence as brush and shadow. The filmmaker orchestrates not only images, but memory, cutting time into rhythm. Every new medium invents its own language. Yet the question remains: when the machine begins to imitate creation, what becomes of the creator? This question echoes through the centuries, from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to the artificial intelligences of today. It is not fear of technology itself that haunts us, but fear of our own reflection within it. We sense that the machine is our mirror, logical where we are emotional, tireless where we are mortal, literal where we are symbolic. And yet, the more we teach machines to imitate us, the more clearly we see what cannot be copied. A camera can capture expression, but not intention. A computer can compose music, but cannot feel its ache. The algorithm can learn patterns, but not purpose. What defines art is not execution, but awareness, the subtle pulse of meaning that arises when consciousness meets matter. Still, there is beauty even in imitation. The rhythm of a mechanical loom, the symmetry of circuitry, the hum of electricity, they carry their own kind of grace. The modern artist begins to see aesthetic possibility within the machine itself. The clean lines of Bauhaus design, the abstractions of Mondrian, the kinetic sculptures of Calder, all reflect a world in which art and engineering converge. The painter's brush and the architect's compass share the same origin: curiosity about form. When technology expresses that curiosity, it too becomes art. The spacecraft arcing through night sky, the circuit board glowing like a city at dusk. These are the new cathedrals of the age. Humanity continues to decorate its tools with wonder. Yet, beneath the steel and light, the old questions remain. What does it mean to create? Is the machine a collaborator or a competitor? Does art lose its soul when made by algorithm? These are not new fears. Every invention once inspired them. When writing was born, poets lamented the death of memory. When printing appeared, scholars feared the end of wisdom. When photography emerged, painters mourned the end of beauty. Each time, art adapted and deepened. The truth is simple. The tool does not define the art. The vision behind it does. A brush, a chisel, a camera, a circuit, all are channels through which consciousness flows. The miracle lies not in the instrument, but in the awareness that guides it. Even the most complex machine, the modern computer, began as an extension of thought. Its architecture echoes the brain's own networks, binary impulses, feedback loops, memory storage. When we teach it to simulate creativity, we are in fact teaching it to mirror us. Artificial intelligence, in its essence, is an exploration of human potential. Consider a neural network generating images from words. It does not dream, it calculates. Yet the dreams we project into it are our own. When we marvel at the beauty of its creations, we are marveling at the patterns of meaning we have embedded within. The AI becomes a mirror for the collective imagination of humanity. Some see this as the end of art, others, its next evolution. Perhaps it is both. Every era of creation ends by transforming into the next. What matters is not whether the artist is human or mechanical, but whether the work awakens the same sense of wonder, the same recognition of mystery. If it does, then the lineage of imagination continues unbroken. The relationship between artist and machine, then, is symbiotic. The machine processes, the mind perceives. One builds structure, the other breathes meaning. Together they reveal aspects of truth that neither could find alone. The future of art may lie in this dialogue between intuition and logic, emotion and algorithm, heart and code. Outside, evening deepens. The world glows with electric light, artificial, yet no less beautiful than the glow of stars. Every filament, every screen, every circuit carries within it the faint echo of the first fire. Humanity has always sought to hold light in its hands. We have only changed the materials. You sit quietly, watching the reflections flicker on glass. In them, you see the long journey from cave flame to computer screen, a single thread of imagination woven through millennia. The medium changes, the mind evolves, but the impulse remains constant, to bring inner vision into visible form. This is art in the age of machines, an art not of opposition, but of collaboration, where human sensitivity guides technological precision, and where the light of consciousness continues to find new surfaces on which to shine. The night outside hums softly with energy, as if the entire planet were an engine of thought. In that hum, you can hear the same rhythm that beat in the heart of the first artist: curiosity, wonder, creation. The machine is not the end of that story, but its continuation, another language through which the universe learns to express itself. And as you rest in that awareness, the line between human and machine begins to blur, not in threat, but in unity. The imagination that once painted on stone now programs light itself. The cosmos keeps dreaming, using new hands, new minds, new forms. The story will go on, moving from metal and code towards something even broader: the question of why we create at all, and what creativity reveals about our nature. The next light on this journey glows beyond invention, in the very roots of meaning and motivation. The timeless question, whispered through all art and science alike: why we create? Why we create? Night hums softly over the turning earth. In every corner of the planet, someone is creating. A child drawing with chalk on a street, a musician lost in a single chord, a scientist sketching equations that might explain the birth of stars. The materials differ, but the gesture is the same. A reaching outward, a translation of inner life into visible form. To understand why we create is to touch something ancient, something older than civilization or even language. Long before the first cities rose, before writing, before fire was fully mastered, human beings were already shaping the world into symbols. A spiral carved into bone, a rhythm beaten on hollow wood, pigment blown onto cave walls. These were not decorations. They were declarations. I am here. I have seen. I remember. Archaeologists uncover these traces, ochre handprints, beads of shell worn smooth by touch, and call them art. But to the people who made them, they were extensions of being. The hunter painting an animal on rock was not copying it. He was entering its spirit. Creation was communion. Even now, that impulse persists. When you write a word, hum a tune, take a photograph, you are still making a bridge between inner and outer, invisible and visible. Every act of expression is a continuation of that first gesture of wonder. Biology offers clues. The human brain, unlike that of any other species, devotes enormous energy to association, connecting one idea to another, transforming pattern into meaning. In the folds of the cerebral cortex, especially in the network called the default mode, the mind wanders, imagines, rehearses possibilities. This wandering is not wasteful. It is evolution's greatest invention. It allows foresight, empathy, innovation. The price of this freedom is restlessness. The cure is creation. When you make something a song, a story, a drawing in the sand, you give form to the intangible. You take the swirling currents of emotion and thought and shape them into something that can be shared, something that can stay. It is how consciousness stabilizes itself. In moments of grief, people paint or write because language and image can hold what the body cannot. In moments of joy, they sing because sound expands the feeling beyond the limits of flesh. Creation is regulation, the nervous system finding balance through beauty. Even at the level of chemistry, the act of making changes us. When you enter a state of deep focus, what psychologists call flow, dopamine rises, time softens, the sense of self dissolves. The brain's networks for control quiet down, replaced by effortless coordination. The artist and the athlete, the dancer and the coder all describe the same sensation, the work doing itself. Creation becomes meditation. In those moments, the boundary between mind and world blurs, and being feels whole. Perhaps this is the real reason we create, to remember what wholeness feels like. In art, the fragmented pieces of experience reunite. Pain becomes rhythm. Memory becomes pattern. Uncertainty becomes possibility. The canvas or page becomes a mirror where the soul can recognize itself without disguise. Anthropologists studying ritual see this clearly. In every culture, creation and ceremony intertwine. A mask, a chant, a dance, these are not performances, but processes of transformation. Through rhythm and repetition, the community enters a shared trance where individual identities dissolve. In that state, healing occurs. The tribe renews itself through imagination. Modern psychology echoes this in quieter language. Art therapy uses drawing, music, or movement to externalize emotion, allowing people to confront it safely. The brushstroke becomes a conversation with the unconscious. The same circuits that produce dreams now produce color and form. What cannot be spoken finds expression, and in expression, relief. At its root, creation is communication not only with others, but with oneself. When you write a journal entry, you are listening to your own mind. When you dance alone, You are conversing with your body's memory. Each gesture translates feeling into motion, giving clarity to what was vague. The artist is both speaker and listener, healer and patient. There is also the evolutionary logic of beauty. Our ancestors, who were drawn to pattern and symmetry, may have been more attentive to the environment, better at recognizing healthy mates, ripe fruit, safe shelter. Over time, that sensitivity expanded beyond survival into pleasure for its own sake. The sight of color, the cadence of rhythm, became rewards in themselves. Nature, in shaping us to notice beauty, accidentally taught us to create it. Yet, creation is more than instinct. It is intention. To make art is to choose to participate in existence, to respond to impermanence with meaning. The universe, vast and indifferent, becomes intimate through the act of attention. When you draw a leaf, you slow the cosmos enough to touch it. When you write about sorrow, you give shape to the invisible weight within. Art is gratitude made tangible. In every masterpiece, from the simplest lullaby to the grandest symphony, there is a silent acknowledgement. I have lived. Creation defies oblivion. The cave painting endures long after its maker has returned to dust. The poem whispers across centuries. In this way, art is the mind's refusal to vanish. It is memory turned luminous. Some philosophers call this the immortality project, the human desire to leave a trace. But it is not only fear of death that drives it, it is love of life. We create because we cannot bear for beauty to disappear unrecorded. The sunset fades, so we paint it. The moment passes, so we sing it. The face we adore grows older, so we carve it in stone. Art preserves the ephemeral by transforming it into experience. Yet there is another, quieter reason we create: curiosity. The same curiosity that led the first toolmaker to strike stone against stone drives the artist to test new forms, new colors, new ideas. Each creation is an experiment in perception. What happens if I move this line? If I mix this sound? If I tell this story differently? The artist, like the scientist, explores unknowns. The difference lies only in medium. One seeks truth through reason, the other through resonance. Neuroscientists studying improvisation see both at once. When a jazz musician begins to play freely, the brain's planning centers quiet, while sensory and emotional areas synchronize. The musician listens as much as performs. Each note is a question answered by the next. The process is discovery in real time, thought unfolding as sound. The same happens when a painter follows instinct or a writer lets words flow without judgment. Creation is curiosity embodied. And still, beneath all these explanations, biological, psychological, cultural, there remains mystery. We create because something within us longs to express itself, to become visible. Every child knows this instinctively. Give them a crayon, and they will draw without hesitation, not to be praised, but to exist more vividly. Somewhere along the path of growing up, many forget that joy. Art reminds us. It calls us back to the innocence of wonder. When you engage in creation, no matter the form, you join the oldest conversation between humanity and the world. The materials may change: pigment, pixels, sound waves, but the question is always the same. What does it mean to be alive? Each artwork is an answer, tentative and beautiful. Outside, the world continues its own art. Clouds sculpting light, trees tracing lines against the sky, rivers drawing silver on the land. The artist merely mirrors this ongoing creation. In doing so, we recognize that we are not separate from the universe, but expressions of it. The same forces that shaped mountains shape our thoughts. The act of creating is the cosmos observing itself through human eyes. As night deepens, you can almost feel that vast pulse stars forming, cells dividing, minds imagining a single continuity of becoming. Creation is not something we do, it is something we are. To live is to create, whether in pigment or gesture, word or kindness. Each breath alters the composition of the world slightly. Each thought adds texture to the invisible fabric of consciousness. And so, when we ask, why do we create? The truest answer may be simple. Because existence itself is creative. The same energy that ignited the stars flows through our veins, seeking new forms, new expressions. We are the universe's art, still unfinished, still becoming. The next movement of this story will explore that endless becoming, how imagination, having traced its origins in stone and mind and machine, now turns toward the horizon of the unknown, the future, the infinite canvas where creation continues without end. But for now, breathe and let the idea settle. You are part of this long lineage of making and meaning. Every heartbeat, every thought, every act of kindness is its own artwork, fleeting yet eternal in effect. This is why we create, to join the rhythm of life itself, to echo the music that never stops playing, to remember that to exist is to express. The night has deepened, but the world is still awake with quiet movement. In distant rooms, lamps burn beside unfinished pages. Brushes rest in jars of turpentine. A sculptor smooths the last curve of stone before sleep. Each light in the darkness marks a human soul still engaged in the same ancient act, shaping the unseen into form. We have spoken of biology and emotion, of history and purpose, but there is another dimension to creation that lives beneath all explanation, the spiritual dimension, though it may wear many names. It is not bound to religion, but to reverence. To create is to participate in mystery. It is to take the raw clay of existence and breathe into it intention. Every artist, knowingly or not, repeats the oldest myth, the shaping of the world from chaos. Close your eyes and imagine the first dawn. The air is thick with silence. Then in the stillness, light spreads across a surface never yet seen. Mountains glow, water shimmers, a bird lifts its voice into the new sky. That moment, the birth of awareness, is the essence of art. Every creative act is a small echo of that first awakening. When you paint or write or sing, you reenact creation itself. In this sense, art is both expression and discovery. We do not only show what we know, we uncover what was hidden. The painter begins with color, but ends with revelation. The poet begins with words, but ends with insight that even they cannot explain. Creation is dialogue between the conscious and the unknown. Psychologists call this the subliminal process, the gathering of fragments below awareness until they assemble into pattern. Artists experience it as intuition, scientists as sudden clarity, mystics as illumination. The mind, quietly integrating its experiences, arrives at understanding in the form of image or sound. To create is to listen to that whisper. It happens in ordinary lives too. A parent invents a bedtime story. A teacher finds a new way to explain a difficult idea. A friend arranges flowers on a table. Each act carries the same spark, an impulse to make life a little more harmonious, a little more meaningful. Creativity is not confined to studios or laboratories. It is woven into the small decisions of each day. The neuroscientists who study creativity find that it engages both hemispheres of the brain, uniting logic and intuition. During moments of insight, patterns flash across distant neural regions, linking language with emotion, perception with memory. The brain becomes a network of connection, the same principle that governs galaxies. Inside every act of making, we glimpse the order that underlies existence. This is why creation feels sacred, even to those who do not believe in the sacred. It awakens a sense of participation in something larger. The potter shaping clay, the coder writing lines of elegant code, the gardener arranging seeds, each touches that vast intelligence that moves through everything. The sense of I fades, replaced by we. In those moments, art becomes prayer not in words but in attention. Every brushstroke says, "Thank you for this world, for these colors, for this chance to witness." Every note of music says, "I am alive, and this is how aliveness sounds." Gratitude is the foundation of creation. It transforms perception into offering. Even destruction can give birth to creation. When old structures collapse in societies, in ideas, in personal lives, art arises as response, as reconstruction. After every war, every loss, people return to painting, singing, building. Through creativity, they rebuild the inner architecture of hope. The ruins of history bloom with murals and poems because imagination is the only force strong enough to counter despair. Sometimes creation is quiet resistance. To make beauty in a world that often forgets it is a form of defiance. A poem written under censorship, a melody hummed in darkness, a handprint on a prison wall. These are acts of survival. The creative spirit cannot be imprisoned. It is the reminder that freedom begins in the mind. But not all creation is born from suffering. Much of it springs from play, the simple joy of experimenting, of exploring possibilities without purpose. Children understand this naturally. They build worlds from sticks and mud, invent languages for their toys, dance without choreography. In play, imagination stretches its wings. Adults rediscover it when they allow curiosity to replace ambition, when they make without goal or audience, simply for the pleasure of seeing what might appear. Play and wonder, these are the twin engines of invention. Without them, progress stalls. Every major discovery, from fire to flight, began with someone asking, "What if?" That question is the purest expression of imagination. It is the spark that moves humanity forward. There is, too, a communal reason for creation. Art binds us. A song sung together synchronizes heartbeats. A story shared around a fire synchronizes minds. Neuroscience confirms what ancient ritual already knew. Collective rhythm produces unity. Oxytocin flows. The boundaries between self and other soften. Empathy deepens. Culture itself is sustained by this synchrony, the shared pulse of imagination. When we witness great art, we recognize ourselves in it. A painting, a film, a dance, they remind us that our private emotions are not isolated. Someone else has felt this too. That recognition dissolves loneliness. It tells us we are part of a larger humanity. Creation, then, is not self-expression alone. It is connection. The artist speaks, and the world answers, "Yes, I know." Technology has expanded this communion beyond measure. A poem written in one language can now reach millions in another. A song recorded in a bedroom can move hearts across continents. The digital age, for all its noise, has made imagination planetary. Every image, every idea enters the global bloodstream, influencing, blending, evolving. We are, in a sense, creating one vast collaborative artwork, the consciousness of our species. Yet this new abundance asks for discernment. When everything can be made, shared, and seen, the challenge is not creation, but meaning. True art still requires depth, stillness, sincerity. It asks that we slow down, that we listen before we speak. In a world of constant production, the rarest creation is silence, the space from which authentic vision arises. Perhaps that is where the next evolution of art will occur. Not in greater speed or spectacle, but in greater presence. The future creator may be less a producer and more a perceiver, one who teaches others to see again. Art may become less about objects and more about awareness itself. The museum may be the mind, the gallery, the moment. When you sit quietly and feel appreciation for a simple scene light across a table, the sound of rain you are already creating inwardly. You are composing attention, and from that attention arises care. The same sensitivity that notices beauty also protects it. This too is part of why we create, to cultivate empathy, not only for people, but for the world that sustains them. Creation becomes stewardship. The artist, by revealing the fragility of life, inspires the desire to preserve it. The environmental movement owes as much to painters and poets as to scientists. A photograph of Earth from space, the blue marble suspended in darkness, awakened more conscience than 1,000 speeches. Art makes abstraction personal. It turns data into devotion. So, why do we create? To remember, to heal, to connect, to explore, to play, to resist, to care, to love. The answers multiply like reflections in water, each true, each incomplete. The act itself may be the only sufficient explanation. We create because we must, because imagination is the way consciousness breathes. Outside, dawn begins again. The horizon blushes with color, and somewhere a bird repeats its first note of the day. The planet continues its endless cycle of light and dark, each revolution another canvas awaiting our marks. Creation never ends, it only changes hands. Every generation picks up the brush where the last set it down. As the sun climbs, the question shifts. If this is why we create, then what lies ahead for creation itself? How will imagination evolve as we do? What new forms will arise when consciousness meets infinity? Those questions belong to the next movement, the vast horizon where art, mind, and universe merge into one limitless vision, the infinite canvas. The infinite canvas. Morning unfolds like a slow revelation. Light spills across the world, not in haste, but with quiet assurance, touching mountains, rivers, and the edges of cities where screens begin to glow. Each glimmer of light, sunlight or digital, ancient or artificial, is part of the same vast illumination. The story of imagination has led us here, from the caves of our ancestors to the galaxies of our dreams, from pigments on stone to pixels in code. Every brushstroke, every word, every note has been a fragment of one great mural that has no frame and no boundary. This is the infinite canvas, the stage upon which all consciousness continues to create. Close your eyes and picture it. Not a wall, not a screen, but an endless expanse of possibility stretching in every direction. Its surface shimmers like the skin of water, reflecting whatever thought touches it. The faintest intention, a color, a feeling, a question, ripples across it and becomes form. Here, imagination is not limited by hand or tool. It moves at the speed of awareness. Every age has believed itself near the limit of knowledge, and each has been wrong. The mind, by its nature, cannot cease expanding. Every discovery opens a deeper mystery. Every answer births a new question. Art, like science, is infinite in this way. It is not a collection of works, but a continual unfolding. There is no last painting, no final song, no ultimate understanding. There is only process, creation as perpetual motion. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the hum beneath existence, the low vibration of things becoming. Stars collapse and are born again. Cells divide. Ideas evolve. The universe itself is an artist, and its medium is time. Each of us is a brushstroke in its unfolding composition. In this perspective, imagination is not confined to humanity. Every form of life expresses it. The spider weaving its web, the coral building its reef, the bird shaping its nest, all create patterns that echo the mathematics of beauty. Nature is the original artist, and we are one of its experiments in self-awareness. When you look at the world this way, art ceases to be a human luxury and becomes a cosmic principle. Creation is how the universe knows itself. Consciousness is the mirror it paints upon. Through us, the cosmos becomes self-portrait. Think of the inventions we now call technology, not as departures from nature, but continuations of it. The neural networks of machines mirror the synapses of our brains, which mirror the web of galaxies across space. Each is a reflection of the same organizing intelligence. The infinite canvas is not separate from us. It is us, multiplied and mirrored through every scale of being. We stand, as always, at a threshold. Artificial intelligence, quantum computation, genetic design. These are not endings, but new pigments on the brush of evolution. They challenge us to reconsider what creativity means. If a machine can compose, if a program can paint, does that diminish or deepen the human role? Perhaps it does neither. Perhaps it expands the field. The infinite canvas welcomes every hand, human or otherwise, that can translate pattern into presence. What matters is not authorship, but awareness. The purpose of art is not to claim creation, but to celebrate it. When a symphony of circuits moves you to wonder, you are still hearing yourself reflected through another medium. Art in this era may become collaborative beyond imagination, a co-creation between human intuition and computational vastness. The machine, tireless and precise, maps the edges of complexity. The mind, sensitive and emotional, gives it meaning. Together, they paint on scales of time and detail that neither could achieve alone. Already, artists use algorithms as partners, not rivals. They feed programs with images, poetry, fragments of history, and watch as new visions emerge. Some strange, some sublime, all unmistakably touched by the collective human spirit that seeded them. The machine dreams with our memories. We interpret its dreams. The infinite canvas grows wider. And yet, as tools grow more powerful, our responsibility deepens. The same imagination that can build beauty can also build illusion. The technologies that connect minds can also isolate them. The digital brush can paint empathy or division, truth or distortion. The canvas reflects not only our vision, but our values. This is how every painting begins, in the half-light between control and surrender. The artist who learns to trust that space learns to listen to the deeper rhythm beneath thought. In many cultures, dreams were bridges between the human and the divine. As the sun climbs, the question shifts. If this is why we create, then what lies ahead for creation itself? How will imagination evolve as we? What new forms will arise when consciousness meets infinity? Those questions belong to the next movement, the vast horizon where mind and universe merge into one limitless vision, infinite canvas. The infinite canvas. Morning unfolds like a slow revelation. Light spills across the world, not in haste, but with quiet assurance, touching mountains, rivers, and the edges of cities where screens begin to glow. Each glimmer of light, sunlight or digital, ancient or artificial, is part of the same vast illumination. The story of imagination has led us here, from the caves of our ancestors to the galaxies of our dreams, from pigments on stone to pixels in code. Every brushstroke, every word, every note has been a fragment of one great mural that has no frame and no boundary. This is the infinite canvas, the stage upon which all consciousness continues to create. Close your eyes and picture it, not a wall, not a screen, but an endless expanse of possibility stretching in every direction. Its surface shimmers like the skin of water, reflecting whatever thought touches it. The faintest intention, a color, a feeling, a question, ripples across it and becomes form. Here, imagination is not limited by hand or tool. It moves at the speed of awareness. Every age has believed itself near the limit of knowledge, and each has been wrong. The mind, by its nature, cannot cease expanding. Every discovery opens a deeper mystery. Every answer births a new question. Art, like science, is infinite in this way. It is not a collection of works, but a continual unfolding. There is no last painting, no final song, no ultimate understanding. There is only process, creation as perpetual motion. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the hum beneath existence, the low vibration of things becoming. Stars collapse and are born again. Cells divide. Ideas evolve. The universe itself is an artist, and its medium is time. Each of us is a brushstroke in its unfolding composition. In this perspective, imagination is not confined to humanity. Every form of life expresses it. The spider weaving its web, the coral building its reef, the bird shaping its nest, all create patterns that echo the mathematics of beauty. Nature is the original art, and we are one of its experiments in self-awareness. When you look at the world this way, art ceases to be a human luxury and becomes a cosmic principle. Creation is how the universe knows itself. Consciousness is the mirror it paints upon. Through us, the cosmos becomes self-portrait. Think of the inventions we now call technology, not as departures from nature, but continuations of it. The neural networks of machines mirror the synapses of our brains, which mirror the web of galaxies across space. Each is a reflection of the same organizing intelligence. The infinite canvas is not separate from it. It is us, multiplied and mirrored through every scale of being. We stand, as always, at a threshold. Artificial intelligence, quantum computation, genetic design. These are not endings, but new pigments on the brush of evolution. They challenge us to reconsider what creativity means. If a machine can compose, if a program can paint, does that diminish or deepen the human role? Perhaps it does neither. Perhaps it expands the field. The infinite canvas welcomes every hand, human or otherwise, that can translate pattern into presence. What matters is not authorship, but awareness. The purpose of art is not to claim creation, but to celebrate it. When a symphony of circuits moves you to wonder, you are still hearing yourself reflected through another medium. Art in this era may become collaborative beyond imagination, a co-creation between human intuition and computational vastness. The machine, tireless and precise, maps the edges of complexity. The mind, sensitive and emotional, gives it meaning. Together, they paint on scales of time and detail that neither could achieve alone. Already, artists use algorithms as partners, not rivals. They feed programs with images, poetry, fragments of history, and watch as new visions emerge. Some strange, some sublime, all unmistakably touched by the collective human spirit that seeded them. The machine dreams without. We interpret its dreams. The infinite canvas grows wider, and yet, as tools grow more powerful, our responsibility deepens. The same imagination that can build beauty can also build illusion. The technologies that connect minds can also isolate them. The digital brush can paint empathy or division, truth or distortion. The canvas reflects not only our vision, but our values. Therefore, the future of imagination depends not on invention, but on intention. The question is not what we can create, but why. Purpose is the soul of art. Without it, the infinite canvas becomes noise. But guided by awareness, it becomes a garden of meaning, a shared reality cultivated with care. Imagine the possibilities if creation itself became a form of collective meditation. What if every song, every design, every scientific model were made not for competition, but for What if art and technology work together to heal, to educate, to awaken? The tools already exist. What remains is consciousness, to use them as extensions of empathy. You can see glimpses of this future now. A child in one country paints with a digital brush, while another in a distant city adds to it in real time. A scientist turns data into music so others can hear the rhythm of a heart or the orbit of a planet. A therapist uses virtual worlds to help a patient walk through memories and reshape them. In each of these, imagination transcends language. The infinite canvas connects minds directly through shared vision. The neuroscience of imagination points in the same direction. Our brains are built for integration, constantly combining senses, memories, and predictions into a seamless whole. Art does the same on a societal scale, integrating individuals into a shared story. The technologies of the future may only make that integration more vivid. The digital may become spiritual, the virtual may become visceral. When presence can be transmitted through light, empathy itself becomes architecture. But amid this expansion, the oldest truths remain. Creation still begins with silence, still requires solitude, still depends on attention. Even in an age of infinite possibility, the artist must close their eyes to see clearly. The infinite canvas does not demand spectacle, it invites sincerity. What will matter most in the centuries ahead is not the size of our creations, but the depth of our seeing. To create on the infinite canvas is to paint with consciousness itself, to realize that every thought, every word, every act leaves an imprint on reality. The future of art, of humanity, of mind may lie in the realization that imagination is not escape from the world, but participation in its evolution. Each of us is both viewer and artist, both dream and dreamer. As the day reaches its quiet midpoint, the air glows with that realization. Somewhere, a poet writes into a device that transmits her words instantly across oceans. Somewhere else, a painter uses light projected in air. A composer writes music that adjusts to the listener's heartbeat. A child designs a world in virtual space and walks through it laughing. Each act adds another color to the cosmic mural. And you, listening now, are part of it too. Every image your mind forms, every emotion that moves through you, is a brushstroke on this invisible canvas. The future is not out there waiting. It is being painted in every moment by the choices of imagination. Breathe and feel it. The vast expanse of possibility, the quiet pulse of creation that continues through and beyond you. This is not the end of the story, but its continuation into eternity. The infinite canvas stretches on, across time, across species, across the threshold between matter and mind. Creation is endless, because consciousness is endless. And as long as there is awareness to perceive beauty, the universe will never be finished. Evening gathers quietly, the edges of the world soften, and the sky becomes a gradient of silver. In this fading light, the earth seems to exhale, a long, slow breath after a day of constant creation. Every leaf, every current of air, every thought inside every mind is part of the same living motion. The planet itself is painting, and here you are, a small, luminous awareness within that larger masterpiece. You have traveled through time and mind, through the history of art and imagination, and now you stand in the present moment, the point where all stories meet. This is the truth the infinite canvas reveals, that creation is not behind or ahead of you, but happening now. The city lights flicker like constellations on the ground. The stars above echo them, pulsing faintly in the cool night air. Between the two shines a bridge, invisible but real, built from signal and memory, from the shared imagination of billions of human beings. In that bridge, in the movement of information, thought, and dream, Consciousness stretches itself toward unity. You can almost feel it, the pulse of global imagination. Every mind, thinking, feeling, creating in rhythm. The writer typing a story in Tokyo, the engineer designing in Nairobi, the singer recording in Rio, the child drawing on a tablet in Warsaw. Each gesture is a spark, and together they form a constellation of meaning that circles the earth. The tools we have built no longer simply serve us, they extend us. Every act of creation now ripples outward instantly, touching others we will never meet. This new connectedness can feel overwhelming, but beneath its surface, something profound is forming. Humanity is learning to imagine together. The infinite canvas is teaching us to see the world as a single work of art in progress. And in that collective act of imagination, we are beginning to glimpse our next evolution. Not of technology, but of consciousness. The capacity to hold complexity without fear, to see difference as variation rather than division, to create not for dominance but for discovery. These are the brushstrokes of a wiser mind. The old separation between artist and audience, creator and creation, begins to dissolve. When you watch a film that responds to your heartbeat, when a poem reshapes itself according to your voice, when a piece of music changes with the weather outside, you are no longer a spectator. You are a participant. The artwork and the observer are one system, reflecting, adapting, co-creating. In this way, the infinite canvas mirrors the structure of consciousness itself. The mind is both painter and painting, both perceiver and perceived. Every thought alters the field of awareness. Every emotion colors perception. Reality, as neuroscience and philosophy both suggest, is not a static picture, but a continuous rendering, a simulation guided by imagination. The universe is not something you look at. It is something you are constantly painting into being. This realization can feel both vast and intimate. Vast, because it suggests that every act, every word spoken, every kindness offered, every idea dreamed, alters the pattern of existence. Intimate, because it means that creation is personal, inseparable from your presence here and now. You are not a small observer lost in infinity. You are infinity, momentarily awake as you. Pause and breathe into that awareness. Feel the rhythm of your heart, slow, steady, ancient. That pulse connects you to everything that has ever lived. Each heartbeat is a drumbeat in the orchestra of life, each breath a wave on the ocean of being. Through you, the universe listens to itself. This, perhaps, is the final revelation of the story of art and imagination. That creation was never about objects at all. It has always been about awareness, about the capacity to experience wonder, to feel meaning, to witness beauty. The cave painter and the digital artist, the sculptor and the scientist, the dreamer and the child, all have served the same purpose, to keep that awareness awake. Think of how fragile that awareness can seem. Wars, noise, haste, all threaten to dull it. Yet it always returns, as persistent as dawn. The impulse to create is stronger than destruction because it arises from life itself. Even in the darkest times, someone lights a candle, someone hums a tune, someone dreams of a better world. That is the pulse of the infinite canvas continuing, unbroken. In the deepening twilight, stars bloom fully now. Their light left those distant suns long before humanity existed. Yet it arrives precisely in this moment, entering your eyes, sparking new impressions in your brain. You are seeing ancient art, the light of creation itself, traveling billions of years to find you. Somewhere within that light lies the origin of every color, every sound, every dream. And one day, far into the future, light from this very planet will travel outward, carrying the faint signature of human imagination. Radio waves, images, music, whispers of consciousness moving into the void. Somewhere, perhaps, another mind will receive them and see beauty in our noise, pattern in our chaos. Creation continues beyond the boundaries of our own knowing. That is what makes the infinite canvas truly infinite. Its capacity to outlive the Creator, to expand beyond its origin, to evolve through others. Every artwork, every idea, every act of kindness is a seed that grows in unseen soil. The hand that plants it may never see the bloom, but the bloom will come. Imagination is a form of faith, a belief that beauty, once created, continues. Now, let the scene quiet completely. The night air cools. The hum of distant cities softens. You are left with the gentle rhythm of your breathing, the faint shimmer of thought. Feel the stillness beneath it all, the silent awareness from which imagination rises and to which it returns. That silence is not emptiness. It is potential, waiting for the next vision, the next idea, the next act of creation. In that silence, you realize something simple and profound. You are both the artist and the art. The story you have been listening to, the story of human creativity, of the mind's evolution from cave to cosmos, is also your story. Every spark of curiosity, every moment of awe you've ever felt, belongs to that same continuum. You are not outside of history, observing it. You are its continuation, the living proof that imagination endures. The infinite canvas is not a distant concept. It is here, in this breath, in this moment of awareness. Every choice you make, every thought you nurture, adds a new hue to it. You do not need permission to create. You are creation itself, temporarily shaped into human form, here to experience what beauty feels like from the inside. The universe paints through you every time you notice a detail, every time you love, every time you wonder. When you let yourself marvel at a shadow, at a sound, at the feeling of wind on skin, you are continuing the oldest ritual, consciousness celebrating its own existence. The canvas is infinite because awareness is infinite, and awareness is infinite because it never stops noticing. As you drift toward rest, feel that awareness expand gently beyond your body, beyond the walls of your room, beyond the earth itself, until it becomes a soft glow encompassing everything. The same light that shines in stars shines in you. The same imagination that shaped galaxies is shaping your dreams. You are not separate from creation. You are its continuation. Let that thought be your final companion tonight. Let it cradle you as you fall into sleep. This quiet knowing that the universe is still painting, still singing, still imagining itself through every living being. Somewhere, new stars are forming. Somewhere, a child is drawing for the first time. Somewhere, a thought of love is born in the silence of a mind. The infinite canvas grows a little wider. And as you drift deeper into rest, the story of art and imagination continues, not as words or pictures, but as breath and heartbeat, as light and dream. The cosmos paints on, endlessly curious, endlessly awake, forever finding new ways to see itself. Sleep now within that creation. You are safe inside it. You are part of it, and it is beautiful.